high school, I got into a lot of music, not from the artists themselves, but because I found an anime music video online. And so I was like, oh, that's really cool. And within like the last couple of years,
Yeah.
I've started to notice anime music videos of my band popping up there, which
Really?
is like, it feels like that is to me, like if I die tomorrow, I fucking made it, son. Like I get it. I'm fucking in. I don't even care.
It's hilarious.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
Well, I mean, the next advancement of this could be an ASMR collabor.
I get so fucking scared when I see like the people on TikTok, they put like plastic wrap over their things and there's like, I'm like, what the fuck are we? I get it. I guess I get it. I don't know. So what time are we at right now? We're at 7:00. So we basically, by the time it goes to 8 or whatever, or by the time it goes to like 9, we sort of, before it gets to 9, we start like that last half hour. You kind of know where the conversation's wrapping up, but that might not fucking happen with you because I haven't seen you in so long. Dude.
It's been a minute. I have questions.
Yeah, go for it.
No, it's nothing about this. Whenever we get started, after we get started.
All right, are we rolling? Yeah, we're rolling. All right, there we
go. Okay. Do you want to introduce first? I have one question. That's the only question I have.
Yeah, I don't really do like a welcome to Collab or Die. This is episode. I couldn't fucking tell you because I back cataloged so many of them just to get ready for launch because I wanted to be able to release and then have them consistently be able to keep going for like every other week or every week for as long as I could keep it going. The goal being to get to 21 episodes.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, like the top of the millions of podcasts that start, like 80% of them drop off after 3 episodes. And then like the remaining 20% of those, like I think 90% of them stop after 20 episodes. So if you make it to
21, you're solid. You're good to go.
That's a video game at that point. So I can play that fucking thing like all day. Like now I've got a tangible objective. I can make this happen.
Yeah. So what's good, man?
Yeah. Well, this is the podcast. This is like
pretty nice. Setup. I like it.
I'm into the thick of it, and I've been really looking forward to, man, to having you come in here because we met. I feel like it's 2005 or 2006. I feel like winter 2005 into 2006 was when we
something like that.
Because it was the Brotherhood shoot.
I didn't know you before Brotherhood.
No, I don't think so. Like I think we met after we started doing like the script readings and things like that, and then I was simultaneously, I was doing music and we were doing the Battle of the Bands for Moving On. And so I was like, oh shit, he's in a group too. Like,
okay. I thought it was music first, then Brotherhood, but I have terrible memory. I have the worst memory.
I didn't start working on music with you until we came up with we sat down in your apartment that one time and we tried to write some music for Brotherhood after the fact. And that was the first time. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm unlocking like weird core memories that nobody asked for. Right. But I just remember being like, wow, this dude's like multifaceted. You were always like super creative and also like super, your voice is like melatonin. It's like so fucking soothing. It's like, yeah, I like listening to him talk in like the most hetero way possible.
In the most hetero way possible.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
But so so I started this. And like I said, I've been looking forward to getting you on because I know you've been going through some changes and stuff lately. And we ran into each other randomly at that shoot I was doing at the bowling alley.
Yeah, you were doing you're filming bowling for was it Thon?
Yeah,
Thon related.
This kid Kyle Rusk, I met him. He's a server at Champs, and he hit me up about doing a live stream for him. He wanted to bowl 100 games for Thon to raise money. Yeah. And I think Thon's coming up next week. So probably by the time this airs, it'll be a little after that.
Yep.
I might just say fuck it and drop all like the first 12, just to have like a catalog out and just say, boom, it's out. Listen to your heart's content.
It's done.
But yeah, so he was bowling 100 games and you caught me probably around like, I don't know, hour 7 or something. No. It was, if I was there at like 8 in the morning, I think you caught me around like that time in the evening. So I've been there a full 12 hours at that point.
You had the glossy-eyed look of like, I'm still here. Everything's working, but I don't know if I can handle a conversation right now. And I was like, all right, I'll talk to you later, Johnny.
No. It wasn't even that. It was like we at that point I had started to run into like technical difficulties. We had been migrating a lane every like 25 games that he played or something like that. A pair of lanes every 25 games. So it was like just got to the point where by the end of the day, between taking a break in the live streams and setting it all back up, starting a new live stream, responding to commenters, live switching.
And you were doing that dolo. You're doing that just by yourself, weren't you?
Which is like the world's most ignorant way to accomplish anything that you're doing. It like but you know, he didn't really have a huge budget to work with.
Sure.
And like if I were going to charge it by the book of what I should charge, it's like he wouldn't have done it. One.
Right.
And also it's like I just didn't want to dig into his wallet that heavily. But like realistically, I've started to, I don't know if you can attest to this in the back half of your life, but like I'm looking at it like, look, like I have to value my time. Like I would love to help everybody out for free if I could. And in most cases, if I can get it to the point where we can do like an exchange of services in some way, there's some mutually beneficial, you know, partnership that you can kind of enact together. That's totally different. But
no, 100%, man.
It was a lot of work and like it's a lot of equipment, and really that's like the bigger part of it.
But see, those are the instances in which it's really hard to be a person who's running your own business, because you do want to help people and help them accomplish what they want. So like the fact that you allowed this guy, he raised a bunch of money, right?
I haven't caught up with him to find out. I'm actually kind of waiting until he gets tooth on, because I don't want to like preempt it, and who knows if a bunch of donations come through in that last week.
Sure, but like even if he made $10, right? Like I'm sure he made a whole lot more than that to raise for money for a good cause. Like your efforts led to him being able to do that. Could he have done it in the same way without you? Probably not. So it's hard to say like I want to. This is worth my time. Only because then you eliminate some of the stuff that like makes you feel good. It also eliminates some of the cool things that. Yeah,
my problem is a lot of shit makes me feel good when I'm helping people, because it already by nature just is baked into the fucking task. Just being friendly to people sets you up to be like, oh, that feels good. It's like it's hard to do almost anything 100% altruistically, because if you get a little bit of something out of it, not that that makes it not worth doing,
right?
But to the degree that it can be, you know, to your detriment to do it all the time, you really have to find a way to put a cap on like how much of that you're going to do, because you need to be able to spend time on your goals and your tasks and your endeavors to make sure that you're making progress in them.
Speaking of progress and endeavors, what do you have a copy of the Brotherhood?
I do have a digital. I have I think I'm almost positive it's on my Dropbox. And if it's not, I have the original hard drive that it was all.
You have the OG hard drive?
Yeah, dude. I linked up with Mike a while ago, and he was like, we should do something with this now that you've got all this audio, you know, technical like know-how.
Sure.
And I was like, I mean, I would love to poke around at it at the side, and then you start pouring into it. It was on film. So there was a lot of room for dynamic range to change and alter the colors and really kind of like play with the color correction, which was great. But it was set up to be such a stylized piece that unless you know how to edit those styles, and I do not have the wherewithal to sit through and watch and really cultivate an understanding of what I'm observing, like I just haven't really dove into it outside of maybe like trying to recreate the opening scene and seeing what I could do for that. And and at the time that I had the hard drive, my guitar player Aaron was still alive, and he did a lot of like music composition for like video games and corporate stuff. And so I was actually going to see if I could get him to kind of go through and just do like a really nice cinematic scoring for it, which would have been fucking spectacular and would have like really added to the elements of the film. But I do have the hard drive. I do have all that footage. It's so funny to see us so young, so little.
I still look at the pictures every once in a while. Like, I just want to see a visual. I had a copy of this. I don't know. So for those that are listening, like that, we did this student film / independent film. It was like a mixture of the two. Like,
she was doing it during her senior year, but it wasn't for school. I think she could turn certain things in, like some of the storyboarding aspects for assignments. But the goal for her was to release it as a film festival run and run for it. And honestly, it easily could have been a contender.
I thought it was a really fun film, and we were playing around with samurai swords.
Yeah, live edge ones.
Live edge ones.
We positive we did not dull them for like live
Not
sets.
enough.
Oh, definitely not. And I remember seeing some of the fights between me and Scott, and seeing like sparks coming off of some of the things that we
I don't know how we didn't die.
I don't know how none of us lost a finger. It's absolutely insane. But
nobody got hurt at all.
That's the Christmas miracle right there. I have no idea how it happened.
Oh my God.
So so I do have all that stuff, and yeah, I'm happy to pour through it. And I'm sure
I just want a single clip. I just want a. I used to. It was on this DVD, and I used to live with down on Beaver, like down, and I remember sitting on the couch every once in a while. I'd be like, I feel like watching it. I'll pop it in there, and it was like just like scene, like just here's a scene, here's a scene. It wasn't finished, but I enjoyed watching it, and I've been wanting and. When every time I move, I go through all of my DVDs and I pop in every single time. Pop in each one is like, that's not it. That's not it. To this day, I think I did this 6 months ago. I had a stack of DVDs like it has to be in here, and it was not. So I would love to just see a clip of. Doesn't even matter how good it is. It doesn't matter. I just want it. Man.
I would love to. I would just love to have some of the comb through clips to be able to, just look at some of the deliveries, like all the takes and stuff like that for each scene should be in there. And now that I have a little bit more of an understanding of like the audio mixing and mastering side of things, it would definitely be interesting to take a crack at that, put a little sting of some music behind it.
Sure.
And really just kind of see if I can build the emotion that you want to hear, you want to feel in those scenes.
Yeah.
But man, I had so much fun. That was at the Belfont Match Factory before they had gone through and refurbished it and turned it into Big Springs.
Right. Which I don't know how we were even in there and not getting caught being in there.
We got permission to be in there because they hadn't they didn't restored it yet because we had Mike Zelazny was going through and he was like gripping all over the place and running wires because there was no actual power on our side of the building. They had to run stings like all the way down the halls around the ceiling to be able to get them to us. But that man was a saint. He is a part of the reason that like any of the technical aspect of that got to come through. But the coolest feature of that building was the hole in the roof. It was so epic.
That's why I thought we weren't supposed to be in there thing. I was like, this thing is going to come down at any moment. Like
the odds that it was going to were certainly high. And then I think not soon after we wrapped filming, it was when they went through and fixed that and started doing the repairs. So I think when we finished, it was like very soon after they were done and ready to start repairing the new.
That whole area is just way different. But those were some good times. Remember walking across the chain tracks, taking all the photos,
all the promos,
all the promo stuff, man. That was the first time.
That promo photo was one of my hot or not pictures. Like forever ago, I was like, "Oh, I look good in this picture. I'm gonna fucking use this one. I'm wearing a suit and a tie, and I have a fucking samurai sword. Like, yeah, we're in. Let's see what react." That boosted my average. I went to like a rock solid. I wasn't quite a 9, but I can settle for 8.8.
See, for me, I remember I showed that to I think somebody that I was dating. Like I was dating somebody, and then eventually it's like, I never showed you a picture. I almost was in this independent film with like samurai swords. I don't know why my voice changes like that when I'm talking to a girl, but that's what happens. And then and so I showed it, and then she just starts laughing. She's like, "That's ridiculous." So I was like, "What is so ridiculous? I got a samurai sword. How badass is this?" She was like, "Yeah, it's fine." I was like, "Okay, well, we're not dating anymore." So
and honestly, that might be a large part of the reason. Actually, I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but
yep.
As I ruminate over the feelings, I'm feeling like that's
that was definitely a tipping point there, I guess. Yeah.
So you were doing audio imagery at the time. That was your group at the time. It was you and Malcolm and George and who else?
Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So audio imagery. The one that it's such a long name. It's a cool name. It's terrible to write, difficult to remember. It's not great for marketing.
It's such a good name. It's just not good for marketing. That's the problem.
Then it's not a good name.
I guess. Yeah. If that's one of the core tenets of what makes names sick, sure. But I always loved it, man. And I always loved like seeing like you guys used to do a lot of showcases and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after that and after college and undergrad and stuff, everybody sort of separates and goes their own ways, especially from my crew. Yeah, certainly life happens, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted you to walk me through like your journey from at post brotherhood and post audio imagery. Like, where did you go from there? I feel like you were on the radio for a long time.
Yeah. So I did a lot of music. So the core group of us kind of went our separate ways. There were some. Let's just say,
had a baby.
Malcolm had kids. Everybody wanted to do their own thing. A lot of people moved away, and that was it. But I still loved to make music, and so I hung on to the name for years, and I would make music under that name. I would spend all of my time going on SoundCloud, uploading, finding new artists. I would find websites in which I can collab with folks all the time. I didn't really do it locally. For some odd reason, the passion, performing live takes so much energy to get everyone together on the same page. And then there's rehearsals. And any group that you want to perform with, right? So after the band kind of disappeared, what happened was me just in a room, man, with my music, and I would pop my head out go to work, come back, I just work on music that's all I did. And then eventually, that it just nothing really hit. But I made a lot of good connections. I still have my favorite connection I did during that time was with this group called Rotten Mummies. They're this Italian EDM set of producers that teach at like a university somewhere. And they're sweet guys, really nice guys. And we started connecting talking about family. And that was one of the most, music is still to this day some of the best you could put on the radio or in the club right now, and it is so good. So good. So I had this whole music experience after that, and I'm still doing music today, which we can eventually get to. But like
definitely, absolutely want to get into it.
This has been like, I can't let it go. I will never be able to let it go. And whether I am being on stage is a drug, but I'm
I have a problem.
Right. I have a problem when it comes to being on stage, but I find I get on stage in other capacities now, but like I can't give up music, man. I can't give it up.
So we had a kind of a lull in Relic Hearts is the new project since the last time we met up and talked music that we were both working on. But when we were releasing, we released our full length, and there were like a few years where we just didn't release anything because we just couldn't get together on the same page on how we wanted to finish and finalize some
And
things.
the name of that group was what again?
Relic Hearts.
Right, Relic Hearts.
And so we dropped Aaron passed away, and we had to have this, well, before he passed away, we had to kind of have this come to Jesus moment where we were like, look, like we're not really releasing much right now, and like we should be better about doing this. Like we have so many stokes in the fire, and we're not pulling any of them out and wrapping them up. Like, what is it we're missing? And sometimes it was like a creative difference and you couldn't get on the same page, and that'll fucking choke a band up for as long as it takes until you work through it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got to a point where it was like, the one member was frustrated. He was like, I just don't know if I want to do this anymore. He kind of like would passively say, like, he was like maybe on his way out the door. And
that's how it starts.
And then the notion kind of became like, but we're all going to keep doing music. And like, we've already built this really good thing together that we could keep building on. We just got to figure out what our formula is. And it just, as people shift and then the dynamic shifts, you have to recapture what it is that makes it possible to write in the first place together, especially when you've got different influences and styles you're trying to bring together. Yep. And so when he passed away, we had another come to Jesus moment actually around a pool table in our guitar player Nate's basement. And we're just sitting there like, look, like, do we want to hang it up now that he's passed away? Like, does this seem like maybe too difficult to kind of move on from, or what do we want to do? And I think we all just kind of decided we're going to keep doing, we were going to keep doing music, whether we were together doing it or apart. And we do love the chemistry that we have. And we had to have a real exploration of feelings and writing styles again, because now one of our core songwriting elements was now gone. Sure. And we needed, so now everything moving forward is going to sound that much different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think to the effect that we kind of had to sit down with ourselves and then as a group together and say, look, like, turns out I can't fucking kick this habit. So I'm going to be doing this for a while anyway, whether it's with you or some other people. Do we like what we're doing? It's like, well, yeah, musically, I think it really strokes all of the passion bits of the things that we love to do. But it's difficult when you're in the artist chair and you also have to kind of run it like a business to kind of keep those wheels going. And that's the part that gets frustrating sometimes. And so I guess I feel like I totally empathize in that regard. Like, just being like, I'm not going to give this up. I'm always going to be creating. To what capacity that is, obviously that varies. I feel bad because audio imagery wasn't really around when like Spotify was around. And I think you guys were of the ilk where you were creating enough that you easily could have popped off in a generation where streaming was a thing, but we were still we had to press physical CDs and, and like that process is expensive as fuck. Yep. And if you buy them in bulk, it's still expensive as fuck because you're buying them in bulk. Yep. So I back that you're still doing it, and I'm glad that you're still doing it because I didn't know, and I was curious. I was like, I can't imagine. Like, you had so much talent. Like, why would you just
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But like the couple things you mentioned, right? You said that it's first, being in a band and working on music with other people is very much, it's some of the most intimate experiences you can have creatively. It's being in a relationship. It's like having family. It's like having enemies all at the same time. And all of the fuel that normally exists, but in those spaces outside of a band, the tension between you and a person and their partner or their family member, as I was saying, those things just explode in their own individual ways. But the cool thing when you're in a band is that all of those things explode, but then it comes out musically. And it's really interesting to see how all of that happens. At the same time, I also can relate to the idea when you mentioned, like, you had to think about it as a business. Our first conversation was talking about like making sure you're getting paid for the time that you have. And as we creatives continue pushing forward with our own individual projects, how much time needs to be spent with the band in order for it to feel beneficial, and how much money needs to be given for me to say like this is valid. And that whole equation is a very complicated one. But at the end of the day, all you want to make is music. But that's like, also, the world tells you that you're not supposed to do that. The world tells you like, I'm supposed to get a reasonable amount of money. I'm supposed to, get my life in a certain order or something. And while I don't live by those standards, it's still one of those things that's the culture we live in that pushes you to making those type of decisions, when sometimes you just want to hang out with friends and just jam and make some music and not give a care if I'm making money. It's just difficult to shut that side off, though.
Yeah, certainly. And I think like when you want to keep it going, I mean, there's so many different variables at play. Like you're playing with a personal dynamic of whether or not you're on or off when it comes to writing and you're in that space. And that becomes a practice you kind of have to regiment and figure out for yourself.
Yep.
And then you turn around and say, okay, now I got to pair that with the other people that are in my band that want to write to this.
Yep.
And so I'm fortunate that we have a process that really works for us when it comes to like, there's like already sort of a vague enough, but I guess narrow enough understanding of the types of music we want to write and the elements we're going to kind of incorporate into it.
Sure.
So there's always sort of space left in each demo for where it's going to evolve to, which I love. And then, when a demo skeleton is done, we can send it to our drummer and he can rework the drums. And then we can go back and be like, we want to alter this bass line. Okay, what are we thinking about production for this and strings? And I try to, it seems like it's a little ass backwards, but for me, if we can get it to a point where I'm really kind of fully submersed into the atmosphere of the song, I enjoy writing like that. And that part doesn't usually happen until you're basically close to the end. And so it's probably frustrating for them a lot that we do start a lot of demos that don't maybe always see the light of day because we're just I'm not in the right place to write to that thing right then. And then he'll write a new demo on a Friday and send it to me. Like, I'm already writing lyrics to this. I've already got melodies cruising. Like and that's the nature of the beast, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was thinking about you made a post on Facebook, I think it was yesterday, about just sort of like, I can't believe this is my life. And I was thinking a lot about this objective view or understanding of passions. And
by the way, that not a negative way, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is my life, but like a positive, like,
that's how you meant it.
Things are good, yeah.
To clarify, yeah. So you definitely were like, oh, my life, I can't believe this is like what's happening to me. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So it made me think of that Deepak Chopra quote, always go with your passion, never ask yourself if it's realistic or not. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like the quick death to your dreams is sitting there and trying to pragmatize everything and make it this thing that is like tangible. You can't set your goal, your metrics for success and what that looks like to you up by other people's standards. And it's hard in a world where music is kind of like very heavily oriented with like culture and fashion and spending money and having this, that, and the other thing. But to me, music was more like poetry. So I was looking for the artists, and those were the ones that I gravitated towards. And that's the artist that I strive to become. And then try to find that balance of, making it something that's something that people can enjoy. It's has enough appeal that more people enjoy it. It's hard because you don't want to seek the validation. You don't want to play to the audience. You want to put on your show, but you also want to have people at your show. So it's like, there's this exercise in finding the common ground with the people that you're trying to play to and the people that you're trying to reach in a way that it makes it, something they can be receptive to.
So speaking of being receptive to, so after audio imagery, I made a bunch of music kind of on my own, found producers and whatnot. And between 2010 and about 2015 or so was my heavy music making years post audio imagery. And so I had enough for 2 full albums worth of I mastered it all. I had it all done. I didn't release it at all.
Just sat on it.
The reason why was because releasing song online or putting it up on YouTube or Spotify or anything like that, that was that was that's it's fine, but it doesn't give you anything back.
Just releasing it?
Just releasing it. Like I wanted to be able to share it with somebody. And if I know it, what hurts more when you have something that you care about, like a song, then what hurts most to me is when I put something out and I get nothing back. Like I'd rather have 5 people like, you really want to hear this thing. Okay, well here you go. I'll let you listen to it. Jason, release the music. Buddy, I'll send you a song. Like that's fine. Right. But I don't need for me to be able to, in my own mind, in my own heart, in my mind, to say, I put it out on Spotify. I hope I get this, and I share it everywhere, and then I don't get anyone listening to it. I'm like, that hurts, man. That hurts to me.
Yeah, and so I guess that's a good segue into. I think part of the reason that becomes such a big issue is you do want to see growth. I think if you're doing it, and not necessarily because you have these external validation sources you're looking for, but you want to know that it's being reached and it's being received and people are even hearing it, because a lot of work goes into it. And it's obviously that effect is like compound whenever you think about a song as your child, right? This is my fucking baby. Well, I'm in like machine mode. Like I know so many different things that I love about music that it's hard for me to sit here and say that this thing can only be attached to me being able to write it, whether or not, unless I'm feeling what I'm going through. And sometimes that's not always the case. And I've found a lot of comfort in sitting in uncomfortable positions with writing when I don't have anything coming to my mind and I don't feel like being there, and just sitting down and being like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and do this. And, it's like, to the degree you can write a song and be like, I want this song to suck, and like go out of your way to try to make it suck. It's like, I bet you once you pull out some of those inhibitions, you're going to end up somewhere where you really like the song that you're listening to that you created, because you took the pressure of writing something that you thought was going to be received well off of your shoulders.
So let me clarify though. It's not like, one, I can relate to the idea of the pressure of writing, and also the freedom of just being like, oh, I don't care about this, see what happens. It's sometimes that's some of the best stuff that comes out when you're just like, I have no cares in the world, whatever. I'll just hit record and I'll just ad lib. I've done that with a few tracks.
They can't all come out that way.
They can't all come out, but I've done a few tracks that way where I just hit record and I ad lib, just freestyle the entire thing. And maybe I'll stop and record like a couple times, right?
Yeah.
The whole Jay-Z way, right? And then some of that is stupid, but it's good. It's stupid, but it's good. So like,
it all has a place.
It all has a place. But the reason why I look for that that moment of sharing with somebody else isn't to become successful, isn't to grow a huge audience. It's just whatever it is inside of the ego that I have, right? To put, when I listen back to a song that I've made and I think it is fucking phenomenal. Like you hear it, and when one of my goals when I was younger, I'm hopping all over the place. One of my goals when I was younger was when I was like, I want to make a song that I make myself get chills.
Yeah, for sure.
That was
build a moment into a song that you're like, wow, I fucking hit that.
Right? And so when I have a bunch of songs like that, when I have just one song like that, and I listen back to some of the stuff that I haven't released, I was like, this is so good that I do not want to just put it out there. I have to have someone that wants to say, hey, I want to try. Give me some of the cake. Give me some of your dang cake. And I'll give you a slice. Like it is I don't care about the 1,000 people clapping. I care about the one that was there from the beginning of the show to the end of the show and wants to make sure that they can't miss a single moment. That means more to me than, even though I love being on stage and that is a drug, like we said, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have that one person.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the visceral connections are really important. We played a festival in Indonesia in 2018, and we booked an extra show like I think a day or two before that show, so we could get sort of like kick the fucking dust off of the post travel jet lag.
You were in Indonesia?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we played the International Indie Music Festival.
That is so cool.
And it was a blast, man. They treated us like the Rolling Stones. It was so sick. We had such a blast. And so we booked this extra show, kind of like a DIY kind of punk show.
Yeah.
And I mean, a bunch of kids showed up. It was so cool. And at the end of it, they all wanted to stop and talk. They had questions. They're singing
Yeah.
every word, like not their native
What?
language. And just a super powerful moment for me, just because I guess I feel like, you know, ended up giving the denim jacket I wore on stage that night to one of the kids that was
That's
there. I
so
was like, yo,
cool.
you appreciate us to the degree that I want people to appreciate us. You make sure you're wearing this the next time we come back. And she
That
was
is
like,
so
yeah, totally.
cool.
Like, I totally will. And, but yeah, there's something to be said for like when you put it out there, you want to make sure that it really reaches. It's like I could care less about the mass appeal.
Yes.
For me, for this, for example, for Collab or Die, I just want to have the good conversations that I want to have with people that I know I have good conversations with. And I look forward to meeting people that I don't know and diving into their world a little bit too. But I really, really like with you, I already knew that talking to you is so easy. One, with you doing radio, like it's probably not even second nature to you. It's like first nature to you to be able to like just rattle and talk really easily. But my goal was not to grow in terms of, oh, I'm focusing on making everything so good that it grows by nature. I just wanted to have organic, authentic communication with somebody who I think has very intelligent, visceral, smart things to say
I appreciate
about
that.
about industry and collaboration and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And music is really one of those ones that it's just its own animal you have to tackle. And if you're in the songwriting phase, that's its own rabbit hole. If you're in the mixing phase, that's its own rabbit hole. If you're in the production phase, pre-production, writing in that regard, that's its own animal. So is mastering, getting there, that's its whole phase. Then you have the whole avenue of going down to get everything distributed, and then you got to pitch for playlisting. And for me, one of the things that what held me up for a really long time is you get the music done, you put it out, and then like we did Warped Tour in 2010, 11, and 12, and we were like selling physical copies of our CD and had contact information on there. Facebook page was growing slowly throughout the summer, and it was really cool. But we never had a music video to release for it until the end of the summer in 2012. And at that point, we lost out on the opportunity to get it to all the kids we just met. And so we didn't get the tour the following year. We were really having an issue with like management and getting like any sort of like booking agency support at all.
Sure.
And so it really kind of became our come to Jesus moment then was like, okay, we need to shift something because like we're happy with what we're writing. We don't maybe necessarily love our mixes, our masters again. We've had enough ability to A and B our music with other music that we like to listen to be like one of these things is not like the other. How do we get this to grow in that direction?
Yeah.
And then and so we just kind of took the year off and just started writing and focused on writing for that year. And we had 2 demos. I think we got to like 3 or 4 before we'd even picked a band name. And then we dropped our cover of Royals. It was like the first cover we dropped, and it was like cruising the first week. And it was, and it's still like one of our most popular streamed songs, which is great. We dropped it right around the time she won a Grammy, Lord, for that song that year, 2014. And it really kind of grew, but it was such a fucking labor of love because I had never shot a music video before, and I needed to shoot one. I wanted to shoot one for this. I was like, if we're going to do anything, I don't want to be writing and releasing music and not releasing a video for it also. So I picked up a camera from the guy who directed our first music videos, an old Canon 60D.
Yeah.
I bought like 1 or 2 lenses that I could use with it. I think a friend showed up with another camera that he let us borrow and use. Knew very little about color correction and editing in that regard, but I had an eye for it. I knew what I was listening for. And I if I could go back and watch myself edit that video again, I would kick my own ass for doing like everything so ass backwards. But the end result when we posted it, I was really, really happy with it. I was like, this is different. I've never done this. And so that started this journey of what I didn't love about the idea of having to conceptualize and figure out how I wanted to shoot a video was that it felt like it was separate from the music. But when you start listening to music and you think of the vibe, the key, the colors that kind of come to your mind, you can start to see you can envision a place where you want to do that video or how you want that video to appear, what the atmosphere of that video should look like. Does the atmosphere I'm looking at match the atmosphere that I'm listening to? And so it kind of kicked off this visual component to music that I had been internalizing through media consumption, right? We had MTV still, we had MTV when it was music, damn it. But we had this ability to sort of like start to explore different kind of powerful visual themes that kind of accompany these, audio elements. And so that kind of saved me a little bit from not releasing stuff because I could always find a reason not to release it because I don't think it's going to get as much reach or whatever. But I'll tell you one of the things that absolutely helped me, and this is an absolutely critical story. I tell everybody when this moment comes up, I cannot wait to fucking tell people. We dropped our first full length as Relic Hearts, and I'm super proud of that body of work from start to finish. Like a really rock solid album from front to back from me. And so I'm very, very proud of it. Whether it stands the test of time, time will tell.
Sure.
But when we recorded it and we released it, some kid on YouTube who had like 150 followers or subscribers or something like that did an album review of our album. And he walked through, and the review is like, it's not good. I guess it's not bad, but it's not good. And I guess if I were to take anything away, it was just like, it's whatever. It's okay. It's good. I've heard stuff like this before. Like these are his kind of commentary. And the best fucking piece of humble pie I've ever had, because I was like, oh, this whole time I was worried about somebody doing exactly this. He's doing exactly the thing I don't want to have happen, and it's actually kind of fucking funny.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed that process, and that was that was like the floodgates opened. I was like, now I don't give a fuck, because I can't make anybody like or hate anything I do.
That feeling when you get to when you get to a point where you say, I don't care. I'm going to do this, and the world can do whatever it wants back, right? That feeling is one of the most freeing feelings from a creative standpoint, from just living life. It allows to give yourself permission to break through any expectation placed on you, and just even if it's just pockets of time, maybe, because I don't even the best folks probably can't do this constantly, but like even for pockets of time when you sit down and write a song, when you sit down and set up this wonderful studio, when you're putting it together, when you're ideating of like, what could this be? You take all the boxes off, and you just say, let's just throw this thing together with whatever. Let's try this. It doesn't make any sense. I don't care. Let's try it anyway. Let's put it in this. And that's why where I've come to make music for myself is it started with some of the songs I said I recorded, just, press record and see what happens. So that's when I didn't care. And I began to get into that. Now, though, what I figured out is, well, the way that I make music now is I actually do it, speaking of visually, I do this live on stream. So on live on stream, I have a gaming channel, partner with Facebook. And so one of the things that we do is that we make music, but we do it live. And so what happens is people will come in, and I'll say, okay, what instruments do you want? And they'll give me a list of instruments. I'll say, okay, what sound effects do you want? Okay. What do you want the song? What song do you want as inspiration? And then we put that song together, and I create it from start to finish, all the music within an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I say, all right now, I want you to put lyrics in chat. I will, on the fly, modify your lyrics and come up with whatever melodies for the song. And we're going to perform the song as if it's a song that we just made, right? Sometimes it's complete garbage. Most times, though, it's so surprising. Halfway through, it'll sound like real weird. Then at the very end, I'll be like, wow, that was really dope.
That really dialed in, came together last second.
Right. And so like, but I would have never done that 10 years ago, because I would have been so afraid that it didn't fit a certain mold. It didn't accomplish a certain thing. I was too afraid that it had to be good.
Yeah, you remove the barrier. You remove two things: the barrier of expectations on what it has to be, and two, you've implemented it as almost like a writing exercise. And there's a reason why we have creative writing exercises.
Yeah, that's true. So that's a good point.
It's literally just another form of it, and that exercise is important, because if you can do that in that scenario, you're doing that whether you're in the mood to do it. You're doing it whether you like the words that you haven't thrown at you or not. And so once you it forces you to play with the tools in your tool bag, and instead of trying to reinvent tools for the tool bag that you already have.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to kind of get in your own way sometimes. And if you can get rid of that barrier of expectations, you're going to get to the aspect where you're just writing. And you have to accept that it's not all going to be gold. Like nobody in the history of ever is fucking writing hits after hits after hits only. Everybody's got songs that are not their strongest on the album, or don't do that well, or singles that don't do as well. And so it's this scalable operation of visualizing how well you want your stuff to do. Like for me, the stuff we have that is done really well that I like least suspected to, I'm like, Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I'm glad we did it. We did it for a reason.
Sure.
So, I mean, like, I can't be mad that this is doing better than this other thing that I really wanted to do really well. You just kind of have to be, grateful for the whole ride and what does and doesn't go. You're like, okay, cool. This is all a part of it. I hope the songs that I want to blow up. We're working on a new song right now. I don't know if we've finalized the name for it, but the working title for it is Spitfire, and I fucking love it. And I actually like the name of it too. I almost want to leave it as just Spitfire.
Yeah.
And I just know that I think that song has all the underpinnings to do really well in terms of people hearing it and being like, oh, this is awesome. And two, in terms of like commercial viability, like I could hear it in video games. Like to me, my generation, like growing up, like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater shifted my music taste. Like the demo CD that PlayStation shipped out, it was like that, and I think Tekken 3 were like the two songs on the thing, or the two games on the disc.
Yep.
And I was fucking addicted to the one level or two levels you were able to play of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and then the other thing I thought a lot about was
brings me back.
High school. I got into a lot of music, not from the artists themselves, but because I found an anime music video online. And so I was like, oh, that's really cool. And within like the last couple of years, I've started to notice anime music videos of my band popping up there, which is like, it feels like that is to me, like if I die tomorrow, I fucking made it, son. Like I get it. I'm fucking in. I don't even care.
It's hilarious.
I don't even care if it's a shitty anime. Like as long as it was an anime music video and somebody else made it out of the passion, like I know what that frame of mind and that space is like as a kid or as a young adult to be doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was a fucking pinnacle moment for me. And then the other moment that I had that I thought was really kind of profound was, okay, this new genre called nightcore, where people take like a song and they speed it up like 30% and or whatever percentage puts it into like a new key, and the vocal is like this higher octave now, or like 2 or 3 octaves higher. Doesn't sound like me at all, and the song sounds like shit because of the degradation that takes place when you compress this track like that. But kids at game are like, I want more music. I want to get through like more of these songs that I like, and so it's like it keeps them all a little bit more upbeat, whether it's a really slower kind of nightcore. And then there's another equivalent, which is daycore, and that's like the deeper voiced version of it. And so it's very, very weird. And we started seeing our stuff pop up on different like pages where people were doing that. And then a good friend of mine actually runs a nightcore playlist or a nightcore artist account called Fly by Nightcore.
Yeah.
And he basically has it's like a miniature, almost like kind of a label for him to be able to go on, to be able to like release other songs that he's worked with and offer people a 50-50 split on the stream revenue for this massively growing nightcore channel that he's growing. And then I guess like the third tentative things that have really kind of made me feel like we're on the cusp, and not even if we're on the cusp, just like I made it kind of moment.
Yeah,
is having kids that are commenting on our YouTube within the last year being like, "Oh, I was here before they were at 10,000 subscribers. Oh, I was here before they did this, or I was here before this." And
that's cool.
And they feel like that's something, and meanwhile, I'm like going through my day-to-day trying to struggle and strife to find my motivation and discipline to get through my dreams and my endeavors that I want to do in the day. But where was I going with that? Fuck. My ADD is terrible. So like
my ADD is terrible, yo. Like honestly, when I was in college, I did absolute garbage, and I would fall asleep all the time. Even I would try so hard, I would get sleep, and I would get sleep, and then I would make a couple mistakes. I would get breakfast, which is what you're supposed to do, right? That's what you're taught. And then I would go to class, and I would instantly fall asleep. All day, I'd fall asleep.
Full belly, all the blood pulling to your stomach.
Right. And so I did this for years of constantly thinking like this was a good idea. And I never knew about coffee, right? And I never knew I had like any attention issues, but I'm constantly moving and I need to be engaged. If you don't engage me, like sitting down in a classroom, I'm done.
Yeah.
So right. So eventually I figured out coffee. And then I was like, I figured out coffee after I barely graduated from college.
Yeah, so you're late diagnosed too.
Yeah, well, I'm never officially diagnosed, but once I began to have coffee, I've become 4 to 5 times more productive. I can sit in a very quiet, dumb meeting and not fall asleep anymore. Like man, my ADD, I don't know if it is officially diagnosed. It's not diagnosed, but like if I have it, just give me a cup of coffee and I'm solid. Until then, I don't know what you're gonna get.
I don't know if all stimulants do it, but I know like Adderall specifically for the people that do need it and aren't like abusing it, it draws blood to the frontal cortex of the brain, and that's the part of your brain used for focus. So I would imagine if coffee also has to some degree that effect as well.
Yes,
that helps. Andrew Huberman, he does Huberman Lab podcast. I don't know if you're a fan of that at all, but the receptors in the brain that caffeine basically blocks, you wake up with a certain amount of that you want to flush out. And I don't remember if it's cortisol or what it is, but there's a certain element of your brain that it's like a neurochemical that needs to be released, and it takes about like a half an hour to an hour after you wake up for that to dissipate. And that's when you're supposed to wait like an hour after you wake up to have that coffee, so that initial grogginess is worn off, so you can actually get the benefit of the coffee as opposed to getting the crash slightly after.
Man, you're about to make me go Super Saiyan. Listen,
I want all my friends to go Super Saiyan. I think like it is way past time that I know a lot of creative people and a lot of very passionate individuals that are, I would never say they're falling short of their goals, but some of them just aren't even going for them. And so it was so great to see that you made that post on Facebook the other day, because you were saying like, I can't believe this is my life. I've given up full-time and part-time positions to chase my dream. Like, there is nothing more simultaneously terrifying and fucking liberating than doing that exact same thing.
Yeah. I would agree with you. There's a couple of benefits though that I have, right? If I had kids, I don't have any kids.
Oh,
right?
you don't either?
I don't have kids.
Me either.
Well, that's why we're sitting on this podcast. Okay.
A couple of hot non-dads over here.
And my phone number is so there's the level of response. If I fail, the worst thing is that my life is crappy for a little while until it's not.
Until I jump onto the next endeavor, or find another passion, or find another thing that's going to spark me into that zone.
Even if I were to fail, right? Like, I can just go get a job for a year or two.
Yeah, fail forward.
And then I'll bounce right back and do something else new. If I had kids, if I had the type of if I would not do the things that I'm doing now if I had the level of responsibility that I was given. Like, my father took real good care of my sister and my mom and my family growing up. And so, like, I would want to replicate that if I had the same thing. There would be no hesitation for me to sacrifice all my dreams to ensure that I can make sure my kids have dreams. Like, so when I'm out there saying I'm living this wild life and I am taking a step of risk, I acknowledge that and I say that is true. At the same time,
my risk is minimalized compared to
others. And I was talking to a good friend of mine. I told you about one of my good friends from the band earlier. And he has 3 kids. He has a house he's trying to make sure that he gets paid for. He works for this one company, and he's trying to figure out the best way to provide for his kids moving forward. And it's the decision-making process in those situations is just, I admire him because he works so hard for his kids, but he doesn't get to do. He's not going to be the one that's like, I'm going to pop up for a podcast. I'm not going to I'm not going to make songs tonight. He hasn't made a song in years. And every single time that he pops through in those streams I mentioned, he's like, man, I miss this. And that like,
it's a real feeling, man.
It's a real feeling. And like, sometimes I want to just stop and what I'm doing, just talk to him. And sometimes I do, but it's like, I can't do anything else aside from being like, Mal, I miss you too. Right. That's
right. Yeah.
That's
you're always welcome if you're able to ever find time, like, please come around. Like, right? I definitely love being around people in that capacity, especially people that I know love to do it and don't really have the time afforded to themselves.
Yes.
I mean, that saying, love is the death of duty, is a saying for a reason, because, I mean, whether that's the love of your life or your children or your family or whatever it is, like, those are the kind of things that kind of go above and beyond the idea of what you have duty in terms of your passions and duty in terms of, like, your job or whatever. It's just such a, I'm definitely... I'm at that age where my mom, I think, is finally about to fucking give up on me having grandkids for her.
Really?
So I think I'm almost outweighed her. I think I've waited her out.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, my younger brother Josh has 2 sons.
See, then you're off the hook. My sister.
No. She wants a granddaughter. You would think I was off the hook as soon as grandbabies came into the picture, but my mom will not rest until I put a fucking granddaughter on this earth.
I understand that.
And what's funny is it's not like I don't want to do it. And it's not like my parents did a terrible job of it. Like, they got divorced and there was a rocky few years, but you realize when you get to our age that at any point in time when you're being raised by your parents, they were just doing their fucking best. Like they were just trying to do what they could do to be in the position to be a provider, you know, and they want you to have a better life than their parents gave them. I think every parent kind of intrinsically feels that.
I would hope so.
Right. Certainly. And so like, yeah, man, if I don't give her a fucking granddaughter, I feel like she might write me out of the will. I might be out of the will. I might not get the inheritance. But I would love to have a kid. Like I would love to have kids. I would love to have a daughter. I fucking pray I am cursed with having to have a daughter so that she can have me wrap the fuck around her fingers. Like I cannot wait. Tell daddy what you want. Okay. All right. I'm going to go get it. And I've been doing some collaborations with my YouTuber buddy. He's honestly like, he's starting to become more and more like a brother now, the more and more we work together.
That's what's up.
His name's Alex Goot. And
that's a dope name.
He's a dope human being.
What's up, Goots?
He is such a hilarious human being. He's super neurotic and very specific and like OCD and like has like he knows what he wants to do. And to me, it's like you could fault him for that. I'm sure some people in his life maybe would say he might be difficult to work with. Maybe I don't know for sure. Yeah. But the things that what he comes with is this devout knowledge and understanding of what he wants. And most people don't fucking have that. Yeah. He has the benefit of the tried and true response of seeing like he's grown his channel to 4 million plus subscribers. And like, he's responsible. He called me a couple years ago and he was like, I think he was bitching about this band that didn't want to listen to him on his advice. And he was like, I'm responsible for billions with a B views on YouTube and streams. And he was like, and these fucking people just don't think I know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And he's not as emphatic. He's much more like, more quiet and reserved about it, but he's so comical. And he's got, he just had, another son a few months ago. And then, I guess his wife Elle had a son, and he is a part of that picture. He
helped with that process.
But his son James, and just watching how my buddy Alex, whom I remember tour managing, and he couldn't do a meet and greet without having a bottle of Moscato in him because he was super like, I do not love this. Oh, you're a big fan of my music? Thank you. That's so awesome. Like,
right.
I don't know how, like, that's not where he was in it, you know? So, like, it was not the same connection that I remember tour managing and being like, you fucking dickhead. I would kill to be playing to 2,000 people today and having a meet and greet line out the fucking door, kids that want to meet me. And it's not like he wasn't grateful for it. It was just like, it was such a nerve-wracking situation for him that it was not as enjoyable as it would have been for me.
Yeah.
Which I totally understand. But to see him, that same guy as a dad now and watching him interact with his kids, man, it just, I know I'm going to be a fucking good dad. If and when that moment comes, I am going to fucking crush being a dad, and I can't wait.
And you'll be put in the will, which will be good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. If it's a granddaughter, if it's another son, like the world does not need more Baker boys. It's like kind of where I'm at with it. We've ascertained our ability to dominate our, gene pool. But yeah, so I think that it is hard to see anybody not really going after the thing that they want to do.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to go after it. And the more, I don't know how you feel, but insofar as I can be surrounded by people that are truly creative and not just creative, but are visionaries in their own right, whatever aspect that looks like.
Yeah.
That is the most powerfully inspiring thing to be around. And it can pull me out of a place where I may be lacking discipline to do the things that I need to do 100%. Or lacking motivation to do the things that I want to do. Like, that is almost second to none. And it's so hard in a town, surprisingly, in a town like State College, to find people like that. And it's not because they're not talented. It's because the resources aren't here and the infrastructure of the culture isn't here. Like, I'm in a rock band, and I just found out there's another metalcore band in the area that's playing some house show. And there's some underground promoter doing these like DIY punk house shows that apparently pack the fuck out. And there's one next Friday. So I was like, give me the address. I'm going to go. I'm going to check you guys out. And he's like, yeah, we'll check your guys' stuff out too. We have a show on April 12th with Tantric, Edema, and I cannot remember the other one. I'm going to be fucking castrated by my bandmates. It's the New Metal Madness Tour. And so I'm extremely excited to do it because they were all bands that I remember listening to in high school. But
they did sound familiar. At least two of them sounded familiar.
But I guess I just look at it like I totally want there to be the ability in this town for me to be able to open for national acts that come through that are able to, fill out a 500 to 600 cap venue. That's just a small cap venue. That's not 1,000. That's not 2,000. House of Blues in Boston's like 2,200, 2,400 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, we would, that's like half the BJC or like a quartered section of the BJC when they set it up that way. But we don't really have the culture built here. And the problem isn't that I don't get to play shows if there's not a place for us to do that. The problem is there aren't a bunch of fucking kids sitting around in their parents' basement or in their garage, pissing them off by sounding absolutely fucking terrible at their instruments and just hammering away and exploring the creative process of what it means to be a fucking garage band and try to figure out what it is that you're trying to express. And like everybody's journey starts somewhere and it always ends up in a bunch of the similar places and it can take them a myriad different number of ways and directions afterwards. But if there's no reason for these kids to be like, I'm not going to get together and practice with Tim, Jake, and Johnny and, Chanel because I just don't want to. There's nowhere we can play. What are we going to do? We're going to play your parents' backyard or my parents' backyard or, your parents want to host it in the basement. Mm-hmm. And I didn't grow up in that world because if I had been in the band whenever I was in high school, I could have got the opportunity to open the same venues that I'm playing now, but there was like a culture for rock in this area. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing Tool when I was like, I think I snuck into a Tool show that was happening at the Crowbar when I was like 15 or 16.
You grew up in this town?
Off and on. My parents divorced, but like this is kind of where like the comeback period was where we ended up being when I finished graduating. Yeah. So I consider State College in the Bellefonte area, like my hometown area, Center County, certainly. Yeah. And yeah, man, you can't have a town like this with so many gifted fucking musicians and it's only growing by the month, right? Because TikTok is exploding, and I've met TikTokers, kids that are in college here in their undergrad that have like 250,000, 3 million followers or whatever. I'm like, that's influential power in this area that's 1,000,000% unable to be tapped because there's no culture or infrastructure here to sustain and promote this kind of behavior. And we're going to be a decade behind every other fucking city in America that is scaling forward and growing with that if we don't figure that out. And it's hard to get the people that have money in this area that are a part of the Happy Valley like industries that exist here to see the benefit in doing something like that. And so we get a lot of like, if you're a band and you're playing downtown, you are a cover band. That's the only way you're playing downtown.
That's true. Yeah.
That's fine. But where's the place that we can go if we want to have reggae night? And where's the place we can go if we want to see a rock band? And where's the place where we can go to have like a hip hop night or like an open mic hip hop night? Those are things that need to exist to really kind of foster a culture in this area, in any area. And we have none of it.
Yeah, but it's difficult here, right? So,
well, the turnover of students makes it hard. We have new students every fucking fall and spring. Yeah. And then, seasonally or I guess yearly, or biannually or whatever, you have people that transfer in, they only do their last 2 here, or they graduate and they're gone. There's not much to really kind of keep them here, but that doesn't mean that there can't be people here that are doing it and having the space,
Right. So the closest thing to that is, so I'm on the one of the many things that I do is I'm on the board of 3 Dots Downtown, where Wedding for Good took place. The spot that's
super familiar.
And so they have had reggae nights. They have had punk band shows. They have had those. But again, it's not the same vibe scene as like. There's no bar there, right? It's not it's not going to be the same feel, but that's
okay. I've been to shows all over the country that are there's one, I want to say it's in Minnesota, and it's like a cul-de-sac of garages, and they've got like 3 of them in a row built out. One of them's the big venue room, one of them's like the green room, and one room's like a rec area where people can like play around. So I don't need there to be a bar for there to be a venue, but there should be at least some aesthetically oriented fucking club where we could do the mixture of all the genres that go through there. A stage. You got to have all the world is a stage except for when there's no fucking stage. Right, like, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to how are you supposed to authentically explore the actor in your life and your ability to express it? That's the way that you want to do it.
See, that's interesting. Okay. So the idea that there is not a place for, some of these folks who are creative to express themselves in a forum that is conducive to build that. Is different. There's no consistent spot. The Crowbar used to be kind of the place where people. That's the joint down.
It's off of East College. It was the Crowbar, and then it was after that. It was the mezzanine, the cell block,
whatever.
Then the mezzanine, and now it was.
Is it still open?
It's open now. It was going to be called Rebar at some point, but the new owners that bought it out turned it into a place called Stage West, and so Stage West is now the Stage West PSU, or Stage West is like the
Something
venue
like
name,
that.
but
Yeah, yeah.
it's the fucking Crowbar. And so we just played a show there in October.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and it was great. And like I found out some things. I was like, oh shit, we have a place. They have an LED backdrop wall. Like I could have sent them a 16:9 ratio aspect video and said, hey, like make sure this is up on the site whenever we play. Or I could link that up with my. Do you use Logic or Pro Tools or?
I dabbled.
Ableton, fucking Reaper,
dabbled. Yeah.
whatever your DAW is. I mean, so with Logic, I could pair a video that I put together that coincides with the tracks to have that and have that export out to the fucking backdrop wall.
Yeah.
And now we've got live visuals that sync up with our music. That's an element that you don't usually get unless you have your own LED backdrop wall. Sure. But in playing that one show there, I was like, oh, this new ownership's not fucking around. They're doing like emo nights. Like a week or two ago, they did a Mac Miller night to celebrate like.
So they are doing some cool stuff.
They do a lot of really cool stuff. And to me, it's like they're a fucking godsend. Like Steve Masterson is the guy who's like my point of contact for there. And he is just always taking care of us. Like he was like, oh, how many, we do like a bucket ticket sale until you reach a certain amount and then we'll talk guarantee. And I was like, all right, what's that amount? And he was like, oh, 50 tickets. And I was like, on it. And we put it out and we had a bunch of people. We sold probably like over a third to 2/3 of the show ticket sales. Like, they were people that were there to see us and then stayed for everybody else in the headliners, which was great. And so it's good to have that now. And this is the second show we'll have played there. So it's kind of like we're starting to begin to compound on that a little bit.
So that's a good thing, all right?
Yeah, but like, I guess I understand and I accept that the onus is on me to help be a part of building the culture. I would love it if some magic fucking hand came down and just supplanted and put this shit all in my space. But if it's not going to be there and I have to build the culture around it, then I want to do it. And part of that is I can do the podcast. I can have these conversational things that show up on people's TikToks. I can have all the good wisdom that comes out of me and the guests that I bring on that are either artists or entrepreneurs or movers and shakers in their own right, and take that and say like, look, this is here. It's already here. Like if you're waiting for it to come, it's already here. We just have to start capitalizing on it.
And that's goes back to you said being surrounded by really awesome people. I'm fortunate enough to stay in the same, renting out a room in the same house as one of the most inspiring people that I know locally. His name is James Tierney. He runs Happy Valley.
Yeah, I took so Jason Olsey, he's the singer of My Hero Zero, and he started Happy Valley Song Lab. He convinced me to take. I had told him about my passion for wanting to do stand up, and he was like, why don't you? He's like, I took this class and I thought it was really good for helping me structure my writing. Why don't you take that with me? And I was like, okay. So I like, 'cause it's not like I didn't get the idea of comedy writing and like writing tags.
Sure.
But really, the class isn't going to be what gets you there. What's going to get you there is eating shit on stage in front of a bunch of people repeatedly until you refine the process. And in doing the class, in the writing class, I got my taste of that. And then I just started being like, okay, I'm going to start traveling and doing open mics whenever I go to somewhere. And like there's Zanies in Nashville. It's a national comedy club and they do open mic nights. So if I go down there, I find out what night the open mic night is and I'm going to go down and maybe I'm going to get like a 3-minute set, 5-minute set, something like that.
That's what's up, man.
And as I write constantly, like I don't write every day if I can in the hustle and bustle of all the other shit I've got going on. But I've started like making sure that if I have something, I take the time to actually sit down and write the premise and some of the tags and stuff like that, and then just rip through them. And I wrote one yesterday that I'm like actually fucking cackling at now that we're talking about our parents' wills and stuff like that. But yeah, James Tierney, man, like I love his enthusiasm for it. I would love to see him in a better venue. Like I would love to see him in a good comedy club venue because he could do so fucking much with it.
I mean, yes. So
the space works. It's fully functional. It's great for improv and it's definitely great for doing some stand up in there. I just wish that I could be a partner and have my hands in on helping up the tech and up, like I'm like, it's so easy to dress this up in a way that really makes it even more profound looking than it already is. And I want to contribute that way, but I don't want to shit on anyone's dreams and be like, hey, I like what you did. Let me do it this way, which will be a little bit better.
Let me tweak that for you a little bit. No, but he'd be receptive to it, I think. But he's somebody, couple things. So being surrounded by really awesome, smart people is encouraging. So I get to talk to him and brainstorm with him all the time. So it's like he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, talking about building, he built that. He built a culture and a community around comedy in this town that never had anything like that before.
Right.
And so
Wisecrackers Comedy Club would come through on like New Year's and do like the Ramada Inn or like some of the little hotels or whatever. Right. Not always. Definitely not every year. But that was the extent to which we had it.
Yes. And so like when you talk about to be able to build something in this town, I do think it is possible. He's not from this area. He came in, he was like, oh, I see this, let's do it. And he made it happen.
He seems like he could be you ever watch the show Portlandia?
No, I haven't seen it.
You like Fred Armisen at all? Do you know who that is? He's a comedian. I think you might enjoy it. The humor is just interesting enough. Yeah. I see him as a character on. He could be a character on that show, and because he just has a lot of like the underpinnings of like who he is as a person.
Yep.
But his style of comedy and delivery. Yep. I had a blast. I didn't take any more of the classes after that because I think I had fully kind of taken away from what I was going to take away from it. Sure. I now needed to do the part where you just go out and eat shit in front of people a bunch.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, he's the kind of person that he's like a promoter, right? In the musical sense, where you need this person to be there because you can't do all the things. Nobody can do it all. And if you want to have the infrastructure, you should have somebody who's really. It's not about what you can do. It's about what the team of people around you can do to help contribute towards that common goal. And he is definitely a vital asset to really kind of enhancing some culture in this area that needs to be enhanced.
Yeah. And so like he formed that team, he formed that group. The people around him are solid. He got folks like you to come take the class. Like it's just one of those things that yes, in this area or in most areas, I would imagine that when you see there's a gap of something that you love or something that's interesting to you, to have to go out and build it is really, it's easy to hop into something that's already there, but to build it takes a lot of effort. And I'll put it to you this way, John, if there is anything significant in this town, I guarantee you we could find the team to build it. We would just have to commit to putting the time into it. Right. I don't think that there are a lot of things in this town that for creatives and non-creatives alike, from small businesses to entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship has been boosting up because of Penn State.
Greg Woodman, the guy who actually runs this building here, the Affinity Connection building, he teaches an entrepreneurial leadership class at Penn State, and I've gone in and audited the class to kind of see like, oh, what is it we could do to like help you kind of create some like social content that is applicable to the realm of what you're trying to push these people off towards. But yeah, you're right. Like the infrastructure is here. I don't know if you can attest to this or not, but getting people to get on board and want to spend the money is like pulling fucking teeth.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that it's like. We have Arts Fest every year. So I guess I'm going to have to get a fucking booth and like sit down and lobby to get all the people that come through to donate to help construct this place, this like magnanimous place of creation. There was an 8,000 square foot facility outside Bellefonte at the, what's the name of it? The brewery that's out there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I cannot think of the name of that brewery.
I can't think of the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
But Axeman Brewery.
Yeah.
So that 8,000 square foot facility, I was like, this could be so many things. This is a filming studio. Some of this could be partitioned out to be some studio space with like, you know, all the rock wool and wall and insulation and stuff like that. You could build something like that. And it also is modular enough to also be a wedding venue that could be tricked out. There's like that really nice cidery on the other side.
Yeah.
Like there's so much potential in there, but the amount to get that, what you would need in the upstart revenue to get into that place and do the build out that you're going to need to get it situated it's a hefty sum. And so it's like, okay, do I also want to run this as a business now, or do I just want that space to exist so I can benefit
somebody
from being able to do it? Yeah, where is that magic hand that swoops the fuck down and takes me to the sky?
Right.
And so I guess I understand that it takes it really does take a village, but I'm like, there are boards around here. So I guess like I'm not in those circles. And I'm an idea guy. And so and I can roll out practical and pragmatic ways to implement and get that and grow. Yeah. But when you don't know all the questions you need to have answered for the people that need to have questions answered, it's hard to go in prepared to those conversations, ready to give them exactly what they need.
That's true. So one first is I think that 3 Dots is going to be the closest to automatically having not a full scoop, but they're working on some big stuff. And so I would definitely holler at Eric at 3 Dots because some really cool stuff's.
That space just needs to be reorganized a little bit.
I can't say much, but just
be patient.
Go talk to her. She got some stuff that she's working on.
I'll have to have you link me. I don't know them specifically, and I've done some events. I did the one event there for you, Wedding for Good. And then I've actually been talking to a couple of hip hop, some rappers in the area about doing like maybe an open mic night or like a underground hip hop night, and like getting just some of the local talent and getting them to get some of their friends out of the woodworks to come and see them, and really having, if you have the space, it's not just about having the space to set up and having a PA set up to be able to perform.
Sure.
We need to do better by the artist and making sure that they actually have the visual element that kind of accompanies that.
Oh,
and,
100%.
and that's, it's an expenditure, and so it's not a luxury that everybody has, and it's difficult for every artist individually to kind of be in control of that and implementing it on their own. But there is just something to be said for, give these people a place where the walls are not white with like picture frames hanging on it, and then there's two shitty PAs on a speaker stand at the front of the stage with zero monitor support. And like, I just want to see a situation where we've got good resources being put into a community that I think has the skill. Like, I know some really talented people in here musically that are either rappers or musicians or whatever it is that they do, but there's no real outlet for them. And you don't want them to have to risk taking a risk and having it suck. But everybody's got to have the chance to be able to fall forward. So I think luckily Stage West being there's these two kids, I can't remember their names, but they kind of sound like a modern day Beastie Boys. And they're from this area, or at least they were doing college here, and then they've blown up on YouTube and TikTok.
Really?
And they're playing a show. They have a show coming up, and I reached out to ask what the situation was like for having local support, not for us, but for some of the artists that I think that I could maybe get them on the bill. And I don't want to play that fucking role, but if I can see an opportunity to connect the dot, I want to. And they were like, oh, well, they're really particular about who they're adding to this bill. And I was like, okay, I totally understand that. At that point, it's too much of a hassle to want to fight the uphill battle of getting somebody who was also in this area to see the value in somebody else. But I know some genuinely talented people that I think you put them in that position and they're going to hit a fucking home run. And only because they've never gotten the opportunity to. And you know that drug just like I do. When you step out on stage and that crowd is good and they're feeding off of it, that there is no better feeling. And so, I want to cultivate a space where more people get to experience that, because I think that experience for me was instrumentally tantamount to the degree to which I grew into the human being I've become, because it only 100%. Took once. And it started probably with like a shitty karaoke session at the saloon or something like that. But that's enough of getting it. I remember though, it was the first Monday after Christmas break, whatever year this was, 2002, 1, 3, something like that. And the karaoke night at the saloon that was the biggest night of them for a year, because all the students had come back from the holidays and they're ready to go out on Monday. It's silly week. I didn't know what that was quite yet. And I remember doing either a Panic at the Disco or a Fall Out Boy song for karaoke.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the fuck took over, but I crushed the song because I've been singing it as a delivery driver in my car for pizzas for fucking years.
Yeah.
And I had this whole fucking basement bar going apeshit, and I was like, oh, like it's like the light goes off and you're like, oh shit, this is what I think I might like to do with my life. But I was still an undergrad, so I didn't start pursuing music till after I was out of college altogether.
See, it's the first time that I did music was the first time I was on stage. I didn't even get a good response, a great response. It didn't matter. It was the first time I played with a band. It was for we were supposed to do like a senior project, and I convinced them to let us we wanted to create music about some topic to make it relevant, right? And so, but it was the first time I got like a bunch of people together for a band, and like we would practice in the basement or whatever. Like that was fine, and we came up with a couple songs, and then we performed. Everyone was like presenting at the end of the year, and we got to perform on the school stage with crappy auditorium, crappy sound, like everything.
Too much light.
Too much light. It was terrible, right?
Give these fucking kids the atmosphere of the experience, and not like the doctor's office vision version of that, where it's like, looking up at these tube fluorescent lights.
But it didn't matter, even though.
Yeah, it's a powerful experience.
It didn't matter. I still remember, like halfway through, the band all of a sudden sounded way different than it did in practice. Like everyone was vibing, and I was like, I'm getting almost chills thinking about it. It's just like that moment you're like, oh, okay, whoa, yeah, and you go like, and I just remember like having that moment of like, I'm going in right now, and I don't remember I was singing, I don't even remember that, but I just remember the feeling that existed. And I was like, I have to do this again.
Well, you have no choice. When you're out there and you've stepped out for the first time, you really have to lean into the experience. Otherwise, you just choke.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
And it's really a fight or flight
That's
response.
true.
If we're talking like amygdala in the brain response as to what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And I definitely like, you know, the first time you go up for karaoke, you're like, oh, it's too hot. Yeah. And that whole experience. And then you figure out, oh, with enough practice at doing this, I'll get more comfortable with that.
Yep.
And now I can start to, you know, work on my mannerisms and how I move around and how I kind of elicit. Jason, my Hero Zero, he watched us play that show at Stage West with Drowning Pool back in October. And he was like, he's like, I listen to your music. I've worked with you. I've helped you write stuff. Like, I get that. But he was like, I don't think I fully understand who you were as an artist until I saw you on stage. He was like, you're not just a singer in a band. He's like, you're a poet. Like, you're delivering poetry. And I was like, I had never looked at myself that way, but it tracks because I love poetry. I love like that prose and stanza format and rhyme schemes. And I like clever wording. Like, I'm a big, like all my favorite emo bands, like Taking Back Sunday and The Used, were all like clever with their wordplay. And so I guess my performance kind of like elicits that. And I was like, it was like a really good observation to have for somebody that like I've been performing for years and never had heard it like that. But when he saw me, he understood, and he just sort of was able to say, I think I get what you're doing now.
So in addition to being on stage and having the drug of performing, I think another surprising drug is at least for me, when I get external validation from someone who I respect unexpectedly, that feeling is so good. So
why? Like, why do you attribute it to being so good? Like, what is it that really resonates with you?
Because I'm really hard on myself, and so like I don't want to call myself a perfectionist, but I always find a flaw, and so
imposter syndrome.
Close, but it's more like that should have gone better. That should have gone better. This could have gone better. This could have gone better.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I can just
come fuck up a note live and be like, I'm gonna remember that one for the rest of my life.
And I do. But so I live in that space of constant like internal criticism of the things that I do. To when someone comes out of the blue, especially people who like I remember the first time I was giving a speech about something at a conference. One of my first speeches. And I thought it went okay. And I was like, that's cool. But in my mind, I was like, there's these 10 things that I did wrong. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And people responded positively, and it felt pretty good. It felt okay.
Well, you have to accept that like your first time with fuck ups is still arguably going to be better than some people's practice, but they just don't naturally gravitate towards doing this thing well. There's this that's idiot savant characteristic that like you can get away with being just so truly fucking good at something right out of the gate with very minimal practice. You got to fine tune and hone because you're directionless a little bit in that regard.
Sure.
But I could easily see you being the kind of person that your fuck ups are other. I noticed it when I play live and people are like, "Oh, I didn't even hear that," and I'm like, "Oh, I play back the track."
Yeah, for sure. That is totally me. So in this situation though, like after I finished doing this talk, I was in like the bar situation. Everybody was mingling afterwards, and this guy came up to me. He's like, he came up to me. He's like, "Hi, can I talk to you for a second?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, I've been doing public speaking for a really long time, and I coach public speakers, and I've worked with them for over 40 years, and you're one of the best people that I've ever seen." And I was like, what? Right? And it came from a thought, like I thought it was fine or whatever, but like that, that was similar to me being on stage the first time and me being like, I got to keep doing this. That was like, okay,
right,
I got to keep doing this now. And maybe you're right. Maybe my screw ups and the times in which I think that I'm absolutely horrendous are still like, okay, maybe that is true. But it's still a process for me. Even to this day, I got a speech that I gave a year ago. I think I bombed. I think I bombed it. I probably didn't, but I think that I did. And it eats me up.
It's cemented in here as an absolute bomb.
It's deep in there. But yeah, when you get it, when it feels good because it is, um, I think in life, it's hard sometimes to find things that you enjoy doing and that you're good at and that people appreciate. Those three things combined, to me, that's not a common thing.
Yeah, it's a really small needle to thread, certainly.
Right?
Especially one where you can perceive of it also.
Yeah. So when all of those three things come together and you get somebody to be like, to have, I would, as soon as you told me the story about Jason, I was like, man, Jason, I wonder if Jason ever heard me perform. I wonder what he would say. Like, that was the first thing I thought.
Let me just tell you right now,
So,
he's the best person to have you watch your worst shit, because he will literally, he finds the gold in all of it.
oh,
He's my, I always say, like, he's my Rick Rubin. He's the guy that I can go to. Like, yeah, like, it may not, I may be trying too hard in this way or that way or whatever, but he'll look at whatever it is that I'm doing, or listen to something I'm writing, or a thing that I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable and try out.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's real big on the preaching of, you have to allow yourself to, you have to give yourself permission to be vulnerable and express this stuff. It's the only way it gets out.
Yep.
And sometimes it's going to have to come out in the form of, this sucks, for you to be able to be like, okay, this idea that I thought was really good did not implement any way the way that I wanted to.
Yep.
Maybe it can be reworked. Maybe it can't.
Maybe
but
you throw it in the trash.
Maybe I never look at it again. Maybe I take a Valium and go to sleep for a little while. Maybe I take all the Valium and never wake up. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that it's hard for most artists when you look at yourself constantly through the critique and lens of your own worst critic. And we are just absolutely fucking gluttons for punishment when it comes to making the perfect the enemy of the good. And there, as if there is some perfect, because, you know, Jason, actually, the first podcast I did with him, he said to me something before the podcast, and just a conversation we had at his kitchen table. And he was like, no songs are finished. They're just left off in very interesting places. And like, you could rework any song, you know, for as long as till Kingdom Come. And it will always be like, I could do this thing a little better. Maybe the snare could, you know, like whatever the conversation is. But the reality is, at some point, you just have to find a place to say, okay, I'm done with this and I need to move on to this new thing.
Yes.
And it's a hard thing to do when your songs are your babies, when you want them all to be like these pristine little creatures that live on forever. But I think now that I'm older, I'm not chasing like the like fame or money. I'm just searching my artistry, and I'm doing it in a way that is very vulnerable between me and a group of other guys that I enjoy writing music with. And in that exploration, I'm able to sort of like discover new nuanced aspects of things that I didn't know about myself musically before. I've started working with an EDM artist. His name's Nukage. It's Tom Myruski. He was in the Brooklyn underground EDM scene, and he was like, could you do some top lines for me to use and like some songs that I want to do? And I was like, sure. So we met for a couple Saturdays in a row, and I just would go over in the morning. We'd be there for a couple hours, and I would sing some top lines, and he would, during the week, send me a mix of a thing that he had written around it or whatever. And so now I'm starting to hear myself in this other sort of tonality that I'm like, wow, I actually kind of hear how this influences or could be folded into, you know, Relic Hearts songs. And so we're doing some remixes and stuff together, some like EDM remixes of some covers and some originals. And I'm super stoked on it. But I mean, this whole fucking process is collaboration. It's all exploration. You just have to be willing to try new things. When you think it's time to try new things, you need to know when to double down, when you got to double down. And all of those skills that kind of teach you how to operate are these things that only come through the process of actually exploring them in the first place. I say, like, you got to try everything twice, because you might get that bunk first experience and then you don't follow up and try it that way ever again.
That is very true.
And you have to not allow yourself to be so shut off. Like, you have to, if you failed at this in one experiment, what did you learn from it? What can you carry forward?
Exactly.
Can I fail forward and take this into the next iteration of how I'm going to try to write something like this and carry over and get something out of it?
But a lot of like when I do public speaking and I've, you know, motivational speaking, that type of thing, this kind of concept comes up a lot of, like, you know, failing forward. And a lot of people make it seem like it's something easy, but it's really not. It's not. No. It's not. And I, you know, through my own social media, sometimes I'll do the same thing. I make it seem like failing was the Failing was the move, man. Failing was the move. Like that's what
could be the move.
It could be the move.
Could be the move.
It's definitely the move.
Could be the move.
Right? And that's the story.
Fucking up a presentation in front of a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's
could
be the move.
Y'all see, this is exactly what I had planned from the jump. This is what's going on, right? But to be able to say to yourself, like, you didn't do that great in these 3 ways. Here's the ways that you can improve it. Now you got to go do the work to improve it, and then you have to go through the work of eating shit in front of a whole bunch of people sometimes, and like or with yourself or with the people that you might have screwed something up with to get back to the place where you were to try it again. And it is a process that I'm still working on, man. It is a process that I'm still trying to perfect, because sometimes this is a very small example. Routine is the thing that gets you from being average to something great.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I don't do really well is if I'm in the moment in a position where I fall out of like, I can do everything, nothing's gonna stop me, I'm gonna fail forward, and I fall back into like, shit. For a moment, my routine gets off.
Yeah.
And then it takes a moment for me to get back into my routine, and like I have to like start the engine all the way over again. The train has come to a stop, and now I have to work it up. And then, but once it's going, I'm good, right? Until I exhaust myself a bunch of times, failing forward. I'm gonna take a break.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's something to be said for momentum, right? Like momentum can carry you through some of that. When you've got the right attitude, you can fail a bunch of times and not have it phase you at all.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've done all kinds. You jump and you do anything acrobatic on stage, you 100% you have eaten shit, and I can point to the series of YouTube videos that prove that point.
Yep.
And so, I mean, there's nothing you can do. Like, there's no walking. I mean, there's walking it off is the only option at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you have to give yourself the grace of understanding that like it's not all over. This is not a permanent thing, and that growth that you're talking about is always happening. It never goes away. If you're an artist and you think you're going to get through life unscathed and just perfectly put out your art with no qualms or inhibitions or holdups at all, you are sadly mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Your real task as an artist is to come to grips with the fact that you are not ever going to hit the benchmark that you set for yourself, almost ever. But the benefit of that is you now know it's important to set the benchmark or the bar that you're trying to reach higher. Because if I set the bar to some completely unattainable reaching point where I'm like, this is way higher than I think I can pull off, but I think we should go for it. Yeah. If I fuck up, which is just the case of nature, the way things happen, as you mess up, you're going to end up, as you start to do it and you've set the bar up here, it doesn't matter where that bar is, you always fall at least a little bit shy of it. So set the fucking bar here so that if you're a decent bit shy of it, you're here. But if you set the bar here because I can do all the things on that checklist for sure.
You're just going to stay down low.
Well, it's not that you're going to stay down low. You're going to grow slower. And that's the only thing that is going to ultimately hold you back in the long run, is that you get to that part as an artist where you kind of feel burnt out and you're like, I'm just not progressing in the way that I want to in this way or the other. And a lot of that can be mitigated by avoiding setting your bar too low. And so when we started doing our covers, it was like, okay, instrumentally, I want to see them come up to here. Music video wise, I'd like to see the atmosphere kind of come up to here, and then you start baking in this, and next thing I know, I'm going to Lowe's and I'm buying a vanity light set, and I have all these LED lights that I'm putting in, and I'm spray painting shit and retrofitting and building and blah, because I don't want to spend $10,000 on a light rig that I would love to have that I don't have the budget for. So you got to find a way to marry like living in your means and also exploring your creativity outside of the box. And so for me, that looked like set the bar here, set the bar here, set the bar here. And then every time, there's always going to be hiccups. So like, even if you did set the bar here and you thought you could get everything, that one kid didn't show up that time to help with the shoot the way you were supposed to. So now you fucking didn't get that thing done, and you're lower than you could when you set this super tangible, and give yourself time. You have to give yourself the space to create it. I think
and that's not something that people give enough of. You need to give yourself the time. It is a process. It is 100% a process. And whether you're shooting a video or a movie with samurai swords, or you're putting together your first time music video, or like creating a podcast. Like that's what's going to happen, man. That is what's going to happen.
This was I had the idea for the name. I was like, oh, Collab or Die. I love that. I think like it's just edgy enough to be like.
Yep.
It seems it's an obviously like filled with fallacy statement, and so it's great in that regard. I think it's at least ear catchy enough that when you hear it, you're like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, all right, cool. I'm gonna sit on that for a week and see how I feel about it. And a week later, I went down, I locked down all the socials. I was like, Collab or Die podcast. Collab or Die was taken on some, so I wanted Collab or Die podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ordered the neon sign during Memorial Day weekend. There was like a sale or something going on. I had a friend who had a promo code, so I got like $600 or $700 neon sign for like $300 and something or whatever.
That's not bad, man.
And then I built the back splash for it. Like I painted the wood and built like a set so it could be modular. I could move it and take it places if I needed to. And then I'm like, all right, I've got that. I built the set. Oh, fuck, I got to start doing episodes. I got to start talking to people. I got to start doing this fucking thing. And sometimes my plight as an artist is everybody's got a million ideas and different directions they want to try. And like, I want to expand my acting reel, and I like doing music, and this podcast is a thing.
Are you still acting?
Yeah, for sure. And then I do photography and videography as a freelance artist. I won an Emmy for editing in 2019. So like, for Penn State, for my work with Penn State football on Unrivaled.
Oh, I do think I knew that. And
so I've proven to myself in measurable increments along the way that even if the idea is ridiculous, if I'm really passionate about it, I'll do it well and I'll do it right. And so this was my endeavor to be like, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I can name my top 5 favorite podcasts, and like I enjoy listening to long form conversation. I think that that's where the real meat of good communication comes from, because you can see really quickly when you're watching two people that are having a weird dynamic of conversation together. Yeah, that awkwardness is almost palpable. Like you can fucking taste it. Yeah, that's weird. Mm-hmm. But like with this, I was like, okay, I've got the name, I've got all the socials down, I got the sign, I built the backdrop. I'm gonna start slow rolling in, and I got Jason to come in, Jason O, to do my first podcast, and just to kind of like get me over the hump. I was like, let's just start it, let's kick it off. And I think I did like 6 in the first 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, I could start dropping these now, but I want to wait till after the new year. Well, now here we are in February, and I haven't dropped one yet. And I just did one with a couple of larger YouTubers down in Nashville like 2 weeks ago. And Alex, my buddy that I go down and do video work with, was like, dude, you got to get this out. Like you're sitting on it. Like, what are you doing? This is the epitome of the thing I always say I don't want to do, or I don't want to die with it still in me. And so, it really took me kind of pushing myself to the point where I'm like, I'm going to do it. And then I had to kind of set myself the metrics of success for how I would gauge whether or not I was enjoying this. And I wanted to just enjoy it. I don't want to sweat. Like I need a little help infrastructurally. So I have a wonderful intern here right now. Cornelio Santos is helping me out. And
Mr. Santos.
He is a godsend right now. He's running through and helping me rip down my social clips and stuff like that. And he wanted to learn how to do the podcast. Like he's a senior this year at Penn State. Yeah. He wants to take this and carry it forward. And I have so much real world applicable experience to share. And I'm showing him like tips and tricks and shortcuts and hotkeys and stuff on Adobe Premiere and stuff today. And he's like, what? I thought I knew everything. And that's like, that's cool. And today, like if he didn't come and see me for the rest of the day, he gained something valuable out of this that I think he'll take with him. And so now it's like, okay, episodes are coming out or done. They're getting completed. I'm going to have the social clips to promote the show. I'll have the podcast out everywhere, video podcast on Spotify. Like now, what do I want to, what's going to make this feel successful to me? I'm like, well, what I want to do are talk to people that I know I have genuine connections with, and all until it becomes something where I have to talk to people that I don't know and I'm exploring getting to know them. Sure. I'm interested in all kinds of people and facets of life. So it's easier to do it that way for me conversationally. But in doing this, one of the things I really wanted to do is not have any pressure to worry about the growth of it. I just want to do it and release it and enjoy that process. If it grows, fucking wonderful. That'll be great. I would love to have that be a source of income down the line. But I didn't want to set myself up for failure early by being like, I need to do this and make money off of doing it. I already spent the money on a bunch of equipment, and I've done the work and labored intensively to get to the point where I could have a space set up that I want to help others utilize it if they want to start their own podcast and make this something that's relatively modular. New things can be hung up and yada, yada, yada. So it feeds my entrepreneurial endeavored spirit, and it also feeds into like, my love of podcasts and my ego's love of good conversation that's engaging. So I didn't want to go too far off the rails, but we didn't. It's perfect because that's exactly what I also wanted to do. But I saw so that you're doing like public speaking, and you're doing. I was looking at the list of the things that you discuss, and you've got like it was like mindfulness and DEI and like which is diversity,
equity and inclusion,
and then motivational speaking, and you're doing stuff with Rotary. You were with the radio. You were just on a podcast the other day. What was the podcast that was?
So in the end of last year, I did Why I Quit My Job.
Why I Quit My Job. Yeah,
I did that one,
which is a rock solid. Now that's right up there with Collab or Die. Why I Quit My Job. That's like, and that I feel like that would have been around the time that quiet quitting was the term that was being like circulated around everywhere.
It's still floating around a little bit
for sure.
You know what name is better than Collab or Die? Audio imagery.
Classic. Yeah,
it's a great name.
If it only had like 4 more syllables.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Okay.
Let me see if I can top that. My first band that I was doing anything remotely successful with was The Groundbreaking Ceremony, which is absolutely the worst band name of all time. Yeah.
Wow. So I have I'm given this spring has been surprisingly I am jam packed, and I'll be barely in town in March. I'll be flying from one place to another to give talks and working with organizations. Still not getting paid as much as I would hope, but it's getting there.
That scales over time. That grows.
It's growing. Also with I got Penn State. I'm doing their entrepreneurship week for one of their events.
Is that the 24th at the end of this week or end of this month?
No, I think that's in April.
Okay.
Excuse me. It is in March. It's right before I go up to PAX East, which is a video game conference up in Boston, which we're doing a panel up there. I just have this. It's wild. A lot of this, I will say that.
What is the panel? Like, what are you going under like a company, or are you going under yourself as like?
So I, one of the companies that I have is called AW Rebels or All Rebels. And I do that with Ian, the bassist from Audio Imagery. And we've been doing that. We've been doing gaming since 2017.
What is this? What does this mean?
The quotes game, because it's kind of gaming and kind of not. Like, we do whatever the heck we want. Like I said, I make music, which is not gaming at all. There's no video gaming portion of it, but it's a live stream that we do. But we are partnered gamers on Facebook, and we do stream on Twitch and whatnot.
What does being a partner gamer on Facebook get you? Are there like perks or benefits to that?
There was last year when we were getting a nice paycheck.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But now things have shifted, Mr. Zuckerberg. Good job. And so, like, like that's been the. So there's been a shift. You get a couple perks. You get invited to certain events.
Okay, I gotcha.
You get additional benefits while you're live streaming a better version of how much money you make. Like, as a cut of the donations that come in, those type of things.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm going up to PAX as underneath All Rebels and working with a bunch of content creators, and that's been a wildly incredible experience.
Yeah, man.
Like the content creators that I've gotten to get on the panel collectively, I think the followers on all their platforms is probably in like it's nowhere close to like your subscriber friends on YouTube, but still is upwards of like 200, 300,000 folks who are going to be following us collectively and being part of the panel. And it's nice that I was like, hey y'all, I like to do this. And they're like, yeah, we know it's going to be dope and we trust you. Let's make this thing happen.
Right.
And so that's what that's going to be. We're talking about a number of different content creation aspects, whether that's live streaming or otherwise. It'll be a blast. It's during the prime time day of PAX. Penny Arcade Expo is the name of what PAX comes from, and that's what we'll be up there.
Penny Arcade, like the comic strip, like from Red Virgo.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. Good for them, man. That looks. I mean, I remember they used to like. Maybe still they do. I haven't seen any Penny Arcade comics in a hot minute, but I used to read them like all the time. There were a handful that I was a big fan of, and theirs was always really good, I thought.
Yeah. So like that's I'm going up there. So I have a ton. This is when I have the most amount of speaking experiences or gigs lined up in a row ever. I do have to say that one of the reasons why this happened, I can't take. I have a hard time doing this, but like last year, I got taking credit. I had last year I got invited to be a host of a major convention. It was a big international convention for Rotary, like audience 11,000 people. I hosted the event for 3 days, and I was like the common thread. it was like a celebrity experience. Like everyone wanted to take pictures with me. It was just like I couldn't go to the bathroom anywhere. Everyone was swarming me because I did a really good job. Since then, I've had a lot of interest, especially in the Rotary sphere, because of the connection that I made on stage with folks. And all I did was just like introduce folks, just be my quirky self and just kind of do my own thing. And
turns out you are enough.
But my point is, like, while I am working to continue to build my brand, that certainly helped to kind of kickstart setting up quite a busy spring, quite a busy summer. I already have stuff lined up for next year. So from a public speaking standpoint and from a professional development and working with corporations and businesses as far as like that goes, that's going to be not my main gig, but it's going to be a pretty nice chunk.
So walk me through up until the end of the year last year when you started. Where were you? Were you still at the radio station up until the end of the year?
No, I did. So I left the radio station in July.
Okay.
I didn't necessarily want to leave in July. They pushed my hands a little bit.
Okay.
And I was just like, I don't need this. Thank you. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been there for 7.5 years or 7 years. And I was like, okay, it's about time. It was one of those situations in which
you were also building the what is it?
All Rebels.
All Rebels.
So All Rebels
as well, right?
Well, that's been building over since 2017, and I think totally we have.
So perfect. That's 5 years of growth on that alone. So like for one thing to kind of go under that, maybe the full or part-time gig that's kind of like helping pay the bills or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes the necessity is the mother of invention, man. Like I wanted to switch from doing photography and videography on the side as well as bartending in between tours to making the jump to actually having my work flow for photography and videography keep me so busy that I didn't have to go back to do
That's
bartending.
What's up.
And I didn't really I've been at the Outback Steakhouse. I was a bartender there and a server for like 10 years and over 10 years. And that's how I toured. I could leave for a month on tour, come back, and my job is right there. I could pick up the closes, pick up the slack. I was a good worker, and I made good money there doing that.
Yeah.
But eventually I was like, could I be doing more if I was just focusing on the things that I love to do and honing those skills? And eventually it got to the point where I was slowly getting more and more work. 2017, I was doing the work for Penn State football for Unrivaled, the Penn State football story. Yeah. And then I was doing a Penn State football pregame show. And then I was also doing other freelance stuff and like for a lot of the local bars in the area, like the First and Local Whiskey prior to Central Reservation opening up. And so I was like, they were like, hey, we gotta have you on the schedule at least once a week in order to justify keeping you on the schedule. And I was like, all right. I was like, well, just like maybe I'll pick up a shift. How about that? And I just kept doing that and kept kicking that can down the road until eventually it was like the new year. And then I just realized like I wasn't in the system anymore. And I was like, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because I didn't have to actually quit. I didn't have to like kind of deal. I mean, I loved all the people I worked with. I understood that they wanted to make room on the schedule. They probably didn't have to like let me go. They could have kept that going for a little while.
Sure.
Corporate's telling us we need to clear out the. I bet they fucking. I bet corporate who has never stepped foot in a fucking Outback Steakhouse restaurant to save their lives cares so much about whether or not I'm still fucking hired here. Yeah. So I left, the restaurant industry and the service industry, and I just kind of let myself fall headfirst into this and be like, let me drown in this a little bit. Let me fucking it's good to it's really, really, I cannot stress enough how important it is that people learn as early as they can to be uncomfortable and at peace with it, to be in a space where they are living uncomfortably while they're working some shit out, because there is so much you cannot be taught or have relayed to you unless you are in the position to suffer and figure out what the suffering means to you so that you can figure out how the fuck you're going to get out of it.
100%. And that's not something that is taught. That's not something that that's something that you don't really get from school.
No, but it is something that's taught though. It's just not something that is taught in like Western culture, certainly. But we're really fixated on if you fail, it's like you're a loser. Like the zero sum. If you fail, you suck. Yep. That is it. And maybe that's a sports mentality, but even I know athletes that don't look at it like that. They're like, yeah, you're going to eat shit. The important thing to do is get all the football players that I've talked to. They're like, it's not about whether or not I'm ace all fucking year. I just have to get my reps in. If I get my reps in, I will get better. And the reps come with the territory of losing. and you have to be able to do that.
And when the interesting thing is that in gaming, sometimes I get to game with younger folks, right? So Malcolm's kid, one of them, right? He pops into my gaming streams every once in a while, and I get to play with him. He's a great kid.
That's awesome.
He's a great kid, right? But he hates to lose. Like, he hates, like, viscerally to lose at anything. And I've seen that a part of a lot of the younger generations, of being like, I don't like to lose something. Like, I hate it. And my response is like, get used to it. You have to.
Yeah. Buckle up, buddy. I don't want to be the fucking dirty uncle, but it's about to get a lot more fucking rough up in here.
Right. Like, and I almost wish that when I was younger, I did get put into, like, I had my own trials and tribulations in my youth, but like I could have handled more. And I think that I would have been stronger for it. And I think a lot of us would be stronger for it. And instead of being like protecting everybody from everything, and I'm guilty of that, right? For my friends, I try to protect them.
We're naturally inclined to protect, right? For sure.
But at the same, like, as an adult, I'm like, all right, some people just don't need any more stress. Y'all, you had enough in your life. Like, let me see what I can do for you, right? But for the rest of us, sometimes it needs to be difficult in order for us to figure out and for us to grow and to get to a better spot. And those are the best moments, man. The fact that your job was like, nah, I can't do this anymore, and you're like, oh, all this stuff popped up. It's not a bad thing. It feels shitty at first, and you're like, yeah, but this and then there's that, and
yeah, when you take stock, it's a little easier to try to justify the situation that you find yourself in. I feel like I grew up under decent amounts of trauma. I think most kids would say that they do.
Yeah.
And I think, like, divorce is its own animal, and I kind of had to reconcile and wrap my head around that. And I was already, like, smart and pretty, like, socially aware. So I was kind of experiencing sort of almost like an objective version of what I was going through in the same times I was going through it, which, you find out later is a result of you not actually processing it, but, like, pragmatically looking at these emotions as, like, things that you can put on a piece of paper and then understand.
Which I still do.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Certainly.
Oh, this emotion. I will just jot this down here and push it to the side. I'll come back to you later, friend.
It's a practice. Like, it's a thing that you have to really kind of show up for and be a part of. But I can say the things that I looked at for the longest time in my life that I thought were the curse ended up coming around and being the blessing. Because I've seen friends of mine in the music industry and otherwise that are doing really, really well financially. But personality-wise, I'm like, your whole demeanor is just dog shit. You've lost all of the concept. Like, if all of that money doesn't get coupled with some humility and a little bit of grace and a little bit of compassion, you're going to lose sight of all the things that are really the most important really quickly. And so for me, I grew up not having much. And so every day, every breath, every penny in my pocket, every, like, dollar in my bank account is a blessing. Like, I'm still alive. I've got enough to provide for myself. And like you said earlier, when you're in that place where you're like, okay, like, I could live comfortably for the next, I don't know, this must be like a feast or famine mentality that I have, but I look at my long-term and I'm like, oh, do I have the ability to just not do any work for the next, like, year? And could I just float and pay all my bills and not have to do anything? And do I have time to figure it out? I know that's not a luxury that everybody has, but I also know that I sacrificed to build that luxury into my life to make it exist in a way where I could be like, okay, if this gig falls through, I'm not fucked. Like, if this doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. If I am depressed and I think I need a little bit of time to dig myself out of this rut, if I need 3 months, I could do it. And, like, to me, I felt like I lived a lot of my life that way. And when the pandemic hit, one of the things that was really kind of interesting to me was that for the first time in my life, I felt like other people understood me without knowing they were understanding me. They were understanding things in a new way, and it was a way that I had already kind of adopted having to live in and grow up under.
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Speak to that.
Well, so, like, when people are, the statistics behind the average American being less than a $500, emergency away from poverty or being, just destitute, that's a really real thing. And I've lived paycheck to paycheck in my life. I've known family members that have lived paycheck to paycheck in their lives. I've just grown up seeing that. And so it's really difficult whenever you see people that are like, well, my job, I can't work my job. So how the fuck am I supposed to make money? It's like, right. And so more people,
right.
More people having that conversation made it so that it becomes a part of like the common, ethos and zeitgeist of what people are discussing about, universal basic income. When Andrew Yang runs in 2016 is kind of like this farce, this joke, this whatever. And then, or was it 2020 that he ran? I think he ran in 2020 also. But that idea was like, it was like ostensibly like laughed at.
Right.
And then a lot of people during the pandemic that were either shifted to work from home, or lost their jobs altogether, or whatever it was. It's like, oh shit, we're basically seeing what a safety net like that could do for people. I like thrived. I was in a place where I was like, oh, I lost a lot. I lost a $10,000 entrepreneurial women in leadership conference that I was supposed to live stream at the Penn Stater. That's a 10 grand contract that I only needed to hire like one other person for to help me do. And so when that went out, I was like, I was slated up to hit, I was trying to reach $100,000 that year.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was just behind where I wanted to be, but I knew the back half of the year was going to pick up where it was going to pick up. And I was going to, realistically, I might've made my goal. Yeah. And then the pandemic fucking took it from me. But I've been so used to living my whole life having shit taken from me that I was like, well, ain't that about a bitch? Guess what's going on next week? I'm going to try to write this song about this other thing that I've got in my brain, because I'm not going to focus on this for the rest of my life, because why the fuck would I do that? And now everybody was in that boat with me. They're like, oh, what am I going to do? Where am I getting groceries from? Remember the first 2 weeks we were fucking wiping down our groceries with Clorox wipes and shit. So it's like, when you see this kind of breakdown of things taking place, a lot of people were really at a loss. And I realized that this thing that I thought was terrible for me had actually had me fully prepared to be in this like situation where I was going to be a little tighter on cash than I wanted to be, but it wasn't the first time I'd lived my life like that. So I was like, okay. And so now I was like, oh, we just got to strip everything down. So I started meal prepping and doing things that like kept my costs low.
Sure.
And I kind of doubled back down on all these like cost saving techniques that I had learned from like, family members and my grandmother and my dad and this, that, and the other thing. And by being able to implement them, I basically was able to focus on doing the other things. I was like, you know what? This is a perfect time for me to focus more on recording and writing, doing that with no touring happening right now. So there's no shows to go play. Yep. So what can I do to maximize my time here? I'm like, well, turns out we can all still get into a room because we're not under union and film music videos together. Don't cough at me, dickhead. And then like moving over and being like, okay, now we can release music. And we released more music in 2021 than we had in like the previous 6 years combined.
Yeah.
And it was a byproduct of us sitting down and having one, that come to Jesus moment after our guitar player Aaron passed away, and two, from being like, do we want to do this or not? Like, what is really holding us up other than our own inability to see past what we think is going to be the perfect song that we're going to write?
Yeah. So going back to this concept of like minimizing and reducing and kind of reconstructing your life back down to something smaller so that you can, because that's where you were at financially. I've been thinking about that a lot. One of my last speaking gigs was in India. They flew me out to India, got to host this one conference, and now I spent 3 weeks there, like 3 weeks after the conference, and just kind of like went to different parts of India. And have you been overseas before? Yeah. Have you been to India before?
I've never been to India. I had the opportunity to go with, I had a studio above Local Whiskey. It was like a small editing cubicle, essentially, like a 15 foot by 15 foot square.
Yeah.
And the lady that ran the yoga studio down the street from me, she was like, hey, I have this convention. Like, could you come in like 2 weeks or something like that and do this? And I almost went to meet like some yoga. Yeah, to meet all these yoga grandmasters from all over that she was going to go see and do some like documentary style. I will go fucking anywhere.
So you did go with her?
I didn't. It didn't end up going through, I think, because this is around pandemic time. So like when she was supposed to go, it was like March when that was supposed to happen. It was when everything shut down.
She's a great person.
Yeah, man. I will do almost anything if I think that if I'm interested in the project, I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. I'll film in the dirt. I'll eat shit. Like whatever you want me to do, if it's fascinating and I think I'll do a good job telling the story or capturing it,
Sure.
I want to be a part of it.
So she's going this year. She was trying to get me to go.
Oh,
But
okay.
she goes to India, and it is. I've never been in a place before in which it challenged pretty much every norm that I have in my life, or um, everything that I think that life should be defined by. If I had to list them all out, they would all have been challenged just by experiencing it. Traveled by myself, did a lot of my own. I lived. I stayed at nicer places because I realized during my travels I was like my own privilege. There are certain things about my own privilege I couldn't let go of, and I figured that I found out
Like
with some
what?
of those. For instance, like the what is considered clean in the States is not the same,
Right.
right? Like the way food is prepared,
Yeah.
um, the way that Western living is just so significantly just overstuffed and fluffed in comparison to the rest of the world, right? And I've never been a privy to. I shouldn't say never. It's been very few times that I've been privy to it. Let alone I've not just immersed myself, right?
Right.
And so upon
It's culture shock.
it's culture shock, right? And so after being there for 3 weeks, coming back home, and I'm still working through this of being like there, looking around the studio, looking around my life, looking around all the things that we have and we take for granted, this coaster, the cup that I'm drinking of, like talking about minimizing and reducing so that you can get to a core place to then expand and create and be yourself. It could be a lot smaller than I ever thought it could be.
Yeah, that's
right.
I mean that you can't put a price on that as a lesson.
Right. And so like I don't know if I would be able to at this point in my life, like right this second. I shouldn't say I probably could do it, but like I think I want to train myself to continue to do that, to reduce the dumb shit.
Trim the fat.
Trim the fat of all the things that we think that we need in order for us to be, and then just be like, get that, whatever that core is. Maybe add a couple little things that you like, right? But like, get that core down. And then if you have that basis in that core, and maybe a lot of this folks have already figured out, maybe it comes from family, maybe it comes from kids, maybe it comes from like the relationships that people have like in their home. But like that adds to it. But to me, if I can get to a place where that is reduced to a good spot, then my ability to do all the things that we've been talking about, to fail forward, to try new things, to expand outward, to help folks with my time when I have a moment and not just think about money, to be able to put out songs maybe in front of other people, to do the cool things and make locations for bands, to be on boards, to give talks, to do podcasts. Like if that's the thing, if those are the things in which I can not only excel for myself, but and give back to, and it also give back to the people around me, then how do I maximize that? I got to reduce and trim all the fucking fat. And that is a skill that, and I think that is where a creative's life can blossom the most. And I want to see if I can do that even more.
So you said something there that really kind of resonated with me. I think it's easier said than done, right?
100. Oh, I'm not saying it's easy, man. I'm not there yet, but I want to do it.
But at the end of the day, you're dealing with this issue of bandwidth. You've got emotional bandwidth, social bandwidth.
Yeah.
You know, and these are things that you only have so much of in a day. The ability for you to pull off the amount of work that you could do in any given day is going to vary based on like whether or not you ate well, whether or not your health is in proper order, a bunch of different things, whether you're, you know, emotionally taxed or not, et cetera. But bandwidth is bandwidth. It's finite. If you've only got so much time in a day or so many feelings in a day that you can process to get through stuff, it's really, really difficult when you're holding on to so many things. And it's really, that's what it is. And there's like I can't remember what culture it is. There's like this old proverb where like you can hold down 5 demons in your life, and it's biting one, grabbing 2, stepping on 2.
Yeah.
but most people have 7, or or they have
interesting
15, and and so it's like you really get to choose in your day to day through your actions and the conscious choices you make, which ones you're gonna dominate and take control over, or even just loosely grasp and hold in fucking place for a little while.
Just for a moment, right? Yeah.
And so one of those things can be overextending ourselves very frequently. I feel like that's very, very easy to do in the creative space. And it doesn't feel that way maybe, and maybe it's masked as being way more rewarding whenever you're in a collective of other really creative individuals. And that's certainly my experience. Like, I feel like I thrive when I'm with other creative people and we need to be brainstorming and throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. That's my fucking gig all day. Like, give me that task. I want to brainstorm with you. I want to kind of sift through, just sort of like, just as an exercise, all the logical little differences and nuanced decisions and idiosyncrasies we can kind of corner in on and play with and tweak and adjust and maybe embellish or whatever. Like, I love doing that. The problem is, if you do that a lot of times for other people, I spent a long portion of my life, longer than I wish I had, grateful for the time I did, helping other people build their dream and not focusing on honing in the craft that was going to allow me to do that for my own dreams. And so I didn't realize that while I thought I was helping myself out by growing and learning all these tools and skills and like meeting people and networking, I was actually kind of hindering myself in other ways. And sometimes you can't really say which is better or worse.
Yeah.
What the real time is the great equalizer. That's where you really see whether or not this thing was beneficial, or was it beneficial because I wasted my time and then was later aware that I wasted time doing this or that or the other thing.
Yeah.
So in all these different facets where you can kind of absorb and learn your lessons and take your lumpins, I feel like the one thing that people don't do a really good enough job of being mindful of is the amount at which they are overextending themselves and putting themselves in positions where, to their detriment, they're helping other people. And it's hard to say that because by our very nature, if we see somebody in need, we want to help. And I will say, as a practice, if I'm having a shitty day or I'm going through a breakup or I'm just really sad about something, I don't know why. I don't think I was taught to do it, but I've made it an exercise to be like, it will make me feel better if I can help somebody else out and do this or do that. And if I can, it just doesn't matter what it is. You go over and I had a TikTok that I don't remember even how well it did now, but I just got into the grocery store and I helped a lady cross the parking lot from the parking spaces across this, not even busy, but like it was a little icy out, and she was like real old, like the classic hobbled crossing. That's the lady of all ladies you're gonna want to help cross the street. That was the fucking lady. And I'm like, just arm in arm, like, this is the best fucking day I've had in so long. And all I'm doing is being an arm to get this lady from here to here and make sure she gets in the building safely. And it's simple little acts like that can be the thing that help you turn your whole fucking day around. You need perspective. That's the real fucking problem. It's hard when you're in your world and you're looking through your goggles and seeing, these are all the problems I have. This is how I'm suffering. This is how I don't have what I want. You go to a place like India, like Indonesia, that you don't have to have a license to be on a motorcycle of any kind, any cc, 50 cc's, 300 cc's, whatever. And they're like 3 to a fucking thing. We have video footage. We took our buddy Joe Large. He's a documentary videographer he does a lot of freelance, but he does a lot of stuff with Nat Geo. And we brought him out because we met him on Warped Tour and we were like, yo, you like doing music stuff. Come out, let's do this. We'll have a good time.
That's what's up.
And so he came out and we're like I don't know why I sat shotgun, but he was in the back and he's just getting the reactions of them freaking out because there are cars ripping right by us and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, that's how it is.
What poverty looks like for us is not the same as poverty elsewhere. So when we think that we see it in its totality in one location, you very seldom do. And if you have the benefit of perspective and hindsight, you can see that there's a lot more to be grateful for than there is to be upset by. And so I hope that in the discourse of doing this podcast that I can find a lot of those common ground threads to weave between other people. Like, I don't want to just focus on artists. I have entrepreneurs and I have, big money people coming on the podcast coming up. And like, I'm really excited about that. But these are people that are other mentors to me and that I know are the value of what they bring in terms of just sort of even their colloquial ability to deliver an anecdotal piece of like evidence or story that they've undergone that is like really helpful in guiding somebody else's personal journey. Yeah. He's got a million of them. One of the guys I'm thinking of, and I mean like that. You don't know the impact that thing can have. So if you can have some perspective on the things in your life that suck, and being like, does this suck, or is this a suck because I'm in the thick of it and I'm not thinking about the mom with 2 kids who's sleeping in a car somewhere that I don't even know about? Why did I make myself think about that? Fuck, that's depressing. It's like, but these are tangible realities. These are things that are happening all over our country and other countries. So it's like,
that was such a real response.
If you have perspective, you can kind of be mindful that like, you know what, everything is not as bad as I am making it out to be. I need to be more patient with myself and allow myself the grace to kind of grow from these growing pains I'm going through.
Yeah, but I would say that a lot of people don't like to gain that perspective. They get locked in their own bubble. They get locked into their own lanes, and they don't step outside enough to gain the perspective that we're talking about. In the course of, when I think about the folks, especially in this area, in a small town in central Pennsylvania, a lot of the people that they haven't seen, like gone to Indonesia to see aspects of another culture. They haven't connected with seen perspectives, sometimes even outside of the state or this area. And so when you have conversations about life in general, when you have conversations to help other people, when you have conversations to create something new, it's difficult when that perspective is lacking. And it's
not lacking is per se, it's limited. It's literally like a horse with blinders on.
Limited, sure.
It's lacking because it's limited. They basically have no ability to see beyond the blinders, and so everything else, and if it's not in the world of what they see, they think everything everywhere is one way. But
what is one moment that you've had what's one moment that you've had in the past year that was a turning point for you for some odd reason? Because the India to me was like a significant mind shift. And I'll talk a little bit to give you a second to think about it. Like one of the things that I chose to do was I didn't pre-plan my travels. I basically the day before I would figure out where I was flying to, taking a train to, taking a car to, and I would go and I would do that thing. I would find out where I'm staying, like as I'm going, and it was actually a little bit more stressful than I let on to believe. But through that process, I got to like, especially the train rides. I got to really interact with people on a greater scale, and English is spoken, but just not always well. And so, like I looking outside of the train window, going from Delhi to Agra, where the Taj Mahal is, you would see such drastic lifestyle differences of way that people would live, and the joys of certain folks, even in the midst of extreme poverty. But at the same time, you would see people that you see the sadder parts of that as well. You would see people on the train in different capacities from an economic point of view, and I'm sitting there staring out this, it sounds like a song. Like I'm sitting there staring out this window on a train, and it's like getting dark, and people are lighting like these little fires to for whatever reasons, I don't know why. And in those moments, I'm just sitting there thinking like my life, what I see the world to be before this moment was pretty deep and profound, but now I'm beginning to see more, and I need to continue diving into that and challenge myself to say everything that I do does not need to be the way that it is, and it can always be better. And the worst day that I have, even if I allow myself to process those emotions, is far better than the best day of many, and I need to keep that in mind. Like, so that train window that I see is I keep coming back to it. Do you have anything like that?
I have one. I have a few, but one that I can think of that is very, it kind of sticks out to me is when we were, I don't know if I want to tell this one because I feel like I've honed in on a bunch of Indonesian stories.
That's okay.
But our driver, his name was Tono, and just a really sweet guy. He was like the guy that was assigned to us to drive us around if we needed to go anywhere. Sure. Like the county we were in, it's Indonesia's predominantly a Muslim country, and they have a lot of dry counties where you can't buy alcohol. Well, we are a band, so we are a band celebrating that our music has taken us several thousand miles across the globe.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
And so, we hit up Tono, who is also a devout Muslim, and he goes and takes us to like the liquor stores and the places that we want to go and the other outskirts of Jakarta where we're trying to get to. And we just had a really good time just sort of talking to him, and his English is broken, and we're kind of getting a little bit of backstory on his life. And he just is so happy every day he's there and he sees us and he's doing it. And I don't imagine that I don't know whether his life was hard or not hard, but I had this moment where we were really connecting with him. One of the, we have some videos where we're teaching him swear words in English because he was just curious about them. Or maybe we were curious to teach him.
Yeah, probably both.
A mix of both.
Yeah.
It was just us.
Yeah, probably.
And so we are teaching him these, and we started having these really visceral conversations. And I was like, are you going to come see us play when we play? We headlined the night that we played on Saturday. And he was like, yeah, I'll come. And so he picks us up and he takes us there, and he parks wherever he has to park, and he goes inside and he's watching from backstage. And I surprised him halfway through our set. We had a little break in the music, and I had him stop the tracks and have him come out on stage. I wanted to introduce him, and I get teary-eyed thinking about it. Like, he was crying when he was on stage. I brought him out, and like, to me, these were people that we had never been to this country, and they had extended the greatest degree of hospitality and love and support and just genuine drive and ambition to show us like all the amazing things that were going on culturally. Music wise, the people of Indonesia, they're musicians, they are top tier. Like, these are just people that really dedicate themselves to their crafts. I would say pound for pound, like per square capita, if you could put all the musicians in America and all the musicians there side by side, like the lead singer from Journey was replaced by the Filipino singer.
Yeah.
Man, that not perfectionist mentality, but like they're really nuanced understanding of that. They're brilliant musicians. And so I pulled him out on stage, Tono, and I'm like, this is our driver. I just want to say, like, from us to him and to all of you, like, he is the epitome of class when it comes to we couldn't have asked for a better person to chauffeur us around and really extend the true, genuine, like, hospitality and love and support of the Indonesian people. And it was just sort of like a quick little speech in the middle of the set. And I was like, we want to thank you so much for having us out here. Yeah. We look forward to coming back. We've had an absolute blast. I climbed like 100 feet in the air off the scaffolding of this massive stage that they had constructed and built for us. It was just absolutely insane. And Tono was like crying. And then, and then I've got all these grown ass men in my band. And yeah, oh my God, I have all these grown ass men in my band. And as we're dropped off at the airport and Tono is dropping us off, we're just fucking bawling because we don't know when the next time we're going to see him is going to be. And we had such a great time. We had some hilarious laughs, just these absolutely like earth shattering moments and really foundationally profound moments for each of us. And we were saying goodbye to him. We didn't know we were going to see him again. And just like, I had this moment where, you don't know if you're in a band with the right people, if everybody doesn't pull the same weight and everybody kind of operates in their own regard. And in this one moment, I just had this like kind of moment of clarity sitting there. And I was like, I'm in the right band with the right people. These people are all crying because they acknowledge what happened here was magic. And they're not only grateful to be a part of it, but they're grateful that he was a part of it. And we have this extension of love heading into his direction for just all of the hospitality and just kindness that he showed us. And that Harry Santoso, his nickname's Coco. He's like one of the biggest promoters in Indonesia. Absolute baller. I love this dude through and through. We stayed in touch on Instagram, and we chat on like I think it's WhatsApp and stuff every now and again. And touch base. And he's like, oh, we're doing this big Indonesian festival. Like, stay tuned. So I think we might be going back relatively soon.
Really?
I really hope we are. We had an absolute blast. He told us about this like Woodstock in Bali that they throw every now and again. It's like 80 bands over the course of a week, and they take over all these like beautiful places in Bali and do it. And I'm like, sign me the fuck. I'll do it for free. Take me out. I'm in. I love going for the experience, but like just going there was great. And the next time we go, I think we decided we're gonna go and actually book like another tour and see some more of the island and like get our way around. They've been kind of plagued with some like terrible earthquakes. There was one that was there while we were there. On the other side of the island, didn't affect us, but just like that experience with Tono and just sort of the Indonesian people, they just loved us so much and they took care of us so well. Like I've never felt more respected and treated as well as a musician in my life. And I find that by and large, the United States culture, I love America. The U.S. culture is absolute dog shit when it comes to supporting musicians. If you go to the smallest town in Germany, you can have a sold out show. I've seen it firsthand with other bands. And like, there's something about the culture being built into the culture, appreciating the arts that we don't. We do it as sort of like this is a nice philanthropic endeavor of ours, but really it's like it's baked into the culture of, you know, the UK and Europe and Southeast Asia. And from what I've seen of like South Africa and Africa, if you go over there, and in South America, most certainly, and in Mexico, definitely, and in Canada, absolutely. But for some reason you go around here and it's like pulling teeth to get promoters that want to, I don't know what they don't do. There's a series of things that I could easily go into that I think are the culprits of that problem, but it makes it so that it's not really enjoyable to play shows here in the US unless you just have some ridiculous following already out of the gate. It's not very easy to build, if at all anymore, through the touring experience. Whereas like if you go to, I would imagine like, I would say like the UK or Europe or Asia, and you do a couple rounds there, you'll have a huge turnout the first night because they're very interested in to see what the culture of another country has brought into their area that sounds, and they'll check it out beforehand. Like the next time we go, I want a 2-week run. I want to do a week while we're in Indonesia, whatever the festival we're doing, and then I want to hit Tokyo and Japan up on the way back, and then go from there back home. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so like, I mean, your story about the moment with your band together, and also the connections you made.
Just at the airport. I remember vividly, like, that it was dark and where the light and everything was, just sitting there and just us hugging and bawling with this, like, grown-ass Indonesian man and then a bunch of fucking hoodlums over there playing rock music. Like, we're just crying and hugging. We're like, we'll see you again, man. Like, we want you the next time we come back. Like, don't forget about us.
But that's the reason why I appreciate how you're a genuine person, and although we've been talking about like all of these other aspects of like music and stuff, it comes back down to, and this is the reason I guess why you're having this podcast, is like finding those people connections and finding those moments in which you can really connect with another human on a level that's not just like you're at a business meeting and here's my card, or I'm at work, this is just like work stuff. But when you find the moments when, just like you just described, where you're able to not only connect with somebody from a different country and a different perspective, but you had your friends with you along the way, and like
brothers,
brothers, right? Yeah. Family with you, right? And those,
I have an actual even more profound story after that. I would be remiss if I didn't tell, and I haven't told anybody. I would love to have.
Okay, all right. I'll quickly finish my point though. So like, that's the reason why Ian is not nearly as compassionate as you are. So he has a big heart, but he's just not going to show it. But I love my homie Ian to death. Like,
you gotta accept people where they are too. Yeah, some people show love differently.
Yeah, he does.
I have respect and love for that too.
Right. And so like,
no shady, and we love you.
Yeah. And like Malcolm is the same way. Like Malcolm is my brother.
That's the biggest fucking teddy bear I've ever met in my life. Right? I can't imagine anybody being afraid of that man ever, because he is the sweetest, kindest, most gentle human being I've ever met.
Yeah, and unless you actually then get him upset.
No, we all have that in us.
Then you stay. But he doesn't show it. But the moments you get to share that are profound for you, and you get to be with like your family, friends,
right?
Like those are so good. So what's the second profound one?
So Aaron, our brilliant guitar player, brilliant musician. When we were in Indonesia, his dad had passed away maybe 2 or 3 years prior. He was kind of like he was not very stable, and he had some issues with substance abuse, and he passes away. And so Aaron takes it really hard because he is actually close to his dad. And as we're over there.
Over where?
in Indonesia.
Okay.
We're at this like pre-event like get together where you're to meet other artists and meet other Indonesian artists. Like I met like the A&R rep for Sony Indonesia while we were out there. Like we're just meeting, like rubbing elbows and just meeting people and saying hi and introducing ourselves. And they ask us to play, and one of the bands goes up and is playing on an acoustic guitar, and they play "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd, and it's acoustic, and it's 2 acoustics, and Aaron was like, "Oh, that's awesome," and he's taking video. I was like, "No, buddy, get up there," because his dad had passed away, and that song was like a song that really connected me to his dad, and so I got to see him in this moment. I have these videos on my phone actually, where he got up and he's singing and playing "Wish You Were Here," and then they followed up after that by playing a song called "Fake Plastic Trees" by Radiohead. And just 2 powerfully sad and enigmatic and beautiful songs, and ones that Aaron used to play a lot, and a lot of his friends and family knew him from playing. And this moment where we're sitting there and I'm recording him, I'm like, I remember saying to him before we went up, I was like, your dad isn't here to see this, but I think like he kind of is. I think it's really important. Like, I know you don't want to go up there because you're like, oh, I'm not ready, I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, I think you'd be upset if you didn't do it. I think your dad would be very proud that the music you've helped be a part of writing has carried you on the other side of the globe, and you're playing a song that reminds you of your dad. I was like, you have to do this. I literally didn't give him a choice. I was shoving him on the stage because he's the kind of person you can put him in front of anything and he's going to be fine. Right. And so you put him in front of an acoustic guitar, just a microphone, and he just sits there and he just bears all. And I just remember being like, I hope that if I'm ever absent-minded enough or just being in my own bag enough to not want to go out and do something that would really be good for me, that I'd be surrounded by the friends and brothers that would tell me like, no, Johnny, like you really need this. Like, go, this is actually something that's almost like therapy or good for you to go and experience this. And it was easily, and all the time that he was alive and we were playing music together, was one of my top 3 experiences with him ever. Because I'd heard him play the song a million times, shit-faced in my bedroom or in my fucking kitchen or in my living room. And just like, and to the degree where you're like, stop, this is depressing, stop. But in this moment, it's like it somehow had become full circle, this beautiful, profound moment that I got to, witness for myself. And also that we were able to like record and be able to give to his mother and his family and stuff. So yeah, just that was one of those experiences, maybe be like, yeah, it's like I can't call because I don't have service, but the next chance I get, I'm like calling my dad, like, I fucking love you, Dad. Like, please don't let me fucking die before you're 90 years old. I'm be fucking pissed. And like, and I do. And so actually, one of the earlier on guests of my podcast was this gentleman by the name of Wade Walters, who was my bass player and brother Nick's dad. He had cancer, and he came in and he did the podcast, and he just passed away like last Saturday. And so really, really sad. I was actually pretty close to Wade, and like my Pennsylvania Dutch sauerkraut and pork and sauerkraut recipe is completely contingent upon tricks and tips that I had learned from him on how to make it good. And so like I wanted to have him on the podcast after he had his cancer diagnosis, because I was like, we don't know how long we have with him, and he's just such a wealth of knowledge, and it's such an interesting life. And so I had him on, and and so he just passed away recently, and being there for Nick at the funeral was really difficult, and his brother gave like a really truly brilliant eulogy, I thought, that really adequately summed up his dad. And I'm glad I had him on the podcast, and that he'll get to live on in that regard. And I'll get that. I can't wait to watch it. I'm gonna bawl through it, but I can't wait to watch that episode again. And yeah, I mean, like I'm leaving the services at his funeral last week, and I just call my dad. I'm like, if you don't live to 140 years old, I'm just gonna fucking kill you now, because I'm not
dealing with this. I'm not dealing with this.
Not knowing that at any moment you're just gonna fucking peace out. You're just gonna call it, dude. Like, and so yeah, I mean, I think I spent a lot of the last several years of my life. When Aaron died, I was distraught. I was really, really upset. Like I dropped to the floor the second I heard it. I just woken up, and that was what I woke up to. And Nick was the one who called to parlay that to me. And but I didn't cry as much as I thought I was going to. And I was really I was in therapy at the time, and I was really kind of upset that I wasn't crying more. I was like, am I broken? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And as I'm walking through my therapist and I'm explaining like how I feel about everything, he was like, I hate to say it, I think you're just really truly grateful for the experience of time that you had for him. Like you understand what you had with him as a gift already. And so you're not getting some of those initial things like, oh, we're not going to get to make more memories. I just know that in the hundreds of millions of years or billions of years that the earth has been around and that the universe has been formed, I ended up somehow in this small fucking bracket of window of time where I got to create music with somebody just so truly just touch from above, and like has this really beautiful gift. And I really did appreciate it. And we went through some hard times together. We fucking almost fist fought all the time. But like in Indonesia, weed's super illegal. And he was like upset that the boys were saying the word weed as if it somehow meant that we had weed on us now, which is not the case.
No.
And so they were just like, man, we just wish we could smoke. Like I miss doing it 'cause it's like super illegal there. And he's like, stop fucking talking about it. Like it was just stressing him out.
No.
But because he couldn't communicate that it was just stressing him out and he would appreciate it if we didn't talk about it. And the other boys were just like, I don't appreciate being told what the fuck to do. Like I'm just talking about it. Like, oh, now I can't talk about it. And like, it got to the point where we were they were arguing with each other in the back. And I just was like, enough. I was like, we are on another country as essentially ambassadors in that regard. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 miles away. Like act your fucking age. I was like, it makes him uncomfortable to hear about it. Just be a fucking adult and stop saying the word. How hard is it? Is there nothing else we can talk about?
You turned on dad mode real quick.
Oh man, I would have to be band dad because Nick is band mom for sure. Like he is for sure the mother, the matriarch of the band. But like, I just remember after Nick's service, like calling my dad and just being like, Dad, like I just want you to know I love you. And like, it's hard for me to, after you experience enough loss in your life, to not make time and be grateful to reach out to the people that really matter to you and that you love and almost like needlessly and recklessly and with no abandon. Like I just reach out to people all the time. Like I just shot my buddy Ken in the text today, just like, hey, thinking about you, talking about you and my mom. I just want you to know, like, I'm super proud of you, dude. Like, I love you. He started a creative agency and like, you're in that group. If I haven't done it to you recently, don't worry. It's in your way. It takes a certain moment.
You're on the list.
Mike Valero.
Yeah.
He reached out to me. We've been connecting a little bit recently. He's back in the area right now. And he was like, have you talked to Jason at all in a while? And I was like, that's so weird you said that. I was like, I just ran into him at the beginning of January. I was like, I should have him on the podcast. And that's when I reached out to you and started trying to get that orchestrated.
That's interesting.
And, it's just I just know so many different people from so many different walks of life. And I've lost really good friends that I grew up with in high school. And some people you just grow distant from. I just love people. I can find a lot of what I love about people, and that's probably what makes me a little bit of a man whore. Is that like I can fall in love with the parts of people that are truly beautiful parts to that person. And
yes.
It's hard for me to say zero sum. If you were anything other than those things, you're not good enough. And it's like, yes, I think everybody's worthy. Everybody deserves that love.
100%. 100%.
So what's on the horizon for you? You got some speaking engagement come up. Let's talk about give me your rundown. Like where can people find you? You got your website. Like you got I want people to be able to check this out and come and see you at some of these events that you're.
Well, a lot of them are not in town. I have a couple in town.
We don't know. The internet's a big fucking place, dude. We put this out there.
I am all over the damn internet.
Perfect.
Check out my OnlyFans. No, I'm kidding. You can check out the Jason Browne, Brown with an E. thejasonbrowne.com. That's where my crappy website currently lives. It's in the midst of redoing that. Have a lot of work to do in that space. A lot of integrations to be had. And then I'm also on Instagram at the Jason Browne. Also find me there. I'm putting out some new content, so this whole new year I'll have a bunch of content there. You can also find me if you do want to see wacky and weird online content. You can find me at All Rebels on everywhere, mostly on Facebook and Twitch. AW Rebels, you can find me there. Yeah, that's pretty much. I got other things in the pot, but mostly that. Check out 3 Dots Downtown if you want to be a creative in Happy Valley. Check out the Blue Brick Theater downtown, comedy, improv, Happy Valley Improv, one of the premier improv troupes that I am a part of. Check out them as well. Yeah, man, that's kind of the gist. As far as where you can, like all the speaking gigs, Man, the only thing I think in town is the Entrepreneur Joint, and that's a closed party. So
I've got a very wide and extensive network of people that are looking forward to starting to check these out whenever we start dropping the episodes. So
yeah, man.
They check it out, and hopefully they're able to see you at a public speaking engagement. Definitely a lot of friends in the gamer community that might be at some of these conventions. So I'd love to be able to connect dots and be like, yo, go see my buddy. He's there. He's doing this talk or he's doing this event.
Yeah, man.
Love to have him see you. Dude, I'm so glad that you came on. I know we had to reschedule, and it was like chaotic and stuff.
Almost rescheduled. I was because they have an event tonight I almost had to do. They have Rock the 80s tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You didn't have to do it?
No, I was the backup.
You were the backup?
I was the backup.
Nah, everybody needs a bottom bitch. He's gonna bring it back.
But like, I didn't mind. I was like, I'm okay. I'm happy that we hung out, man. It was good to catch up with you. It was good to, earlier on, I do want to reply back to one thing. Earlier on, you said that you got me on here because I do this stuff and I do, like, I have the ability to talk like I'm on the radio. I wasn't talking with you like I was on the radio. I was just chatting with you.
Oh, no. I just know that you have that capability. So worst case scenario, that persona could come out and save your ass if you wanted to. But the conversations we always had.
I didn't even think of like that was not even part of this was just real me just hanging out with you, man.
Yeah, man. I saw the post about the public speaking and the motivational speaking and doing just like all the stuff you got with the gaming and with everything else. I was like, oh, he's quit. Like, I didn't know when the radio transition happened, but I kind of bumped into you, and I could tell when we were talking to each other briefly that there was some things were changing, and like it was too much to get into in that moment. Yeah. But I was like, I can't wait to fucking find out because you're just one of those people that is, we're beating down this path and making these efforts to try to grow and learn and experience and cultivate our creative growth as an individual, and also, turn these into career paths that, guide us and fundamentally fulfill us. So I just knew that having you in and being able to find out what you were up to, there was no way I wasn't going to be fascinated by what you had going on and love the chance to catch up with you.
The last thing I'll leave on is if you're a corporation or a business out there that would love to have some great training with DEI/improv, let me know, because I'd be happy to help do that for whatever business you might have. Or just give me money and I'll do stuff. How about that? But no, for real, I have a lot of workshops and stuff coming out that we are going to be working with some top corporations already. So if you need training related to almost anything with membership, with organizational development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm your guy. So holler at me.
I know personally for me, I'm going to hit you up whenever I'm writing out stand up and pick your brain just to kind of, I'll Zoom you and I'll just give you a run by on some of the stuff and be like, okay, I see that didn't go over as well as I thought it would, but I'd love to have you as a litmus test, dude. Because I feel like you've got a very great sense of humor.
Well, thanks, man. I was literally, it's good to catch up. And I need that clip. I need a clip from the movie so I can watch it at some point from the Brotherhood and just be like, yeah, that was me with a sword. That's all I want to say. I want to eat a tub of ice cream while watching a clip from that movie.
I got them all. I'm going to dig them out for you. Jason, man, thank you for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Bye, anything from me, let me know.
Yeah.
Bye.
Peace.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
That is a wrap on another episode of the Collab or Die podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making this episode for you. And now it's time for our favorite part of the show, the part where I beg you to please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Don't be that guy. Follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I want this podcast to be wherever you are, whenever you need it, just like a reliable wingman or a comforting bowl of mac and cheese. And don't be shy. Give us a shout out on social media at Collab or Die Podcast on all the cool platforms to share your thoughts, your feedback, and your love. Until next time, Collab or Die, baby.